Hello, everyone. Welcome to our inauguration. No, really, welcome to the Sleepless Cinematic Podcast, where we explore our shared love for watching and discussing movies recorded in the late after work hours, often in lieu of a good night's rest. I'm Julian.
I'm Madeline.
And I'm Emilio. The three of us are colleagues at a Midtown Manhattan music school. Yes, music is what brings us together, but movies are what keep us together, talking at the end of the night. So we've created some order to this ongoing trend by recording these conversations, considering an overarching theme while we cycle through 5 unique guidelines for engagement.
You can email us at sleeplesscinematicpod@gmail.com. Seriously, we would love to hear from you. You can follow us on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok for updates, highlights, clips, and other visual supplements to the audio we record at Sleepless Cinematic Pod. And subscribe to our monthly newsletter at sleeplesscinematicpod.substack.com to get even more insights, recap thoughts, and musings about our conversations and other related Sleepless Cinematic goings-on.
In addition to these main episodes, we record and release bonus one-off episodes as we see fit. And while we do this, you, the listener, can count on the three of us doing what we've grown to love, forgoing sleep for a discussion about movies every other week.
And this week, we wrap up our current cycle focusing on Twins and Doppelgängers with a category we call Close-Up, a deeper dive into the career of a professional in the movie business. We often focus on some lesser-known figures like character actors or certain writers and directors, and discuss at least 3 of their representative works and the characteristics that exist throughout.
And when we were discussing this cycle and who/what to do for a close-up, at first we were thinking outside of a specific person. Maybe we would think more like a theme. But then one name came to us, somebody that has done dual roles in even more movies than the ones that we are talking about tonight.
Oh, tons.
And that is the great Tilda Swinton.
Ooh.
Yes, an incredibly versatile actor by all accounts, but, well, this is one particular category of her career, and the fact that, this is such an abundant thing that she has done made her perfect for this category in our podcast. So, I remember the discussion when we were planning this cycle that as soon as, Madeline, you brought up this idea, it was a no-brainer from there.
And to discuss the likes of Tilda Swinton, we welcome in a guest that is one of the nearest and dearest pals I have, someone who, since our first days as freshmen at NYU, I recognize was a kindred spirit as a lover and a participant in the arts. She is someone who I shamelessly imparted my movie taste on. I would say in the years, though, I think she's turned me on to some things as well. She's also a writer and a musician, too. I have to say this here, that she played saxophone in a very fun 60s pop cover band called The Superheroes, where every member actually dressed as a comic book superhero. It was very fun to see them live. The two of us also have an EP of music out there somewhere in the ether under the name Former Roommates, with some music that I'm very proud of. And while she moves through life, she always makes time for a movie, which is one of the reasons we became and have stayed such good friends. I'm always deeply appreciative to hang out with her. So my friendship and work/podcast worlds uniting like it is now is a very special thing for me. Sarah Ungerleider, welcome to the Sleepless Cinematic Podcast.
Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I do want to shout out Emilio. I feel like you have been a big influence on me movie-wise. Maybe within the first month of us meeting, you would introduce me to Heathers, Grosse Point Blank, Better Off Dead. There are many more.
Okay. Harold and Maude, maybe?
Harold and Maude, yes. Harold and Maude, of course.
Okay.
And, I'd always loved movies, but I feel like you just kind of got me on a whole other level of appreciation and to take risks with, outside of my comfort zone, hidden gems. So I'm very grateful to you.
Aww.
And I'm grateful to be here.
Oh, thank you. That's really sweet. It's nice to know that, because at that time in life, I feel like you're freshman in college and you're just throwing what you think is the best version of yourself out there to the world. And so it was very nice to know that meant something. Better Off Dead, by the way. We really have connected.
There's
on that
saxophone
one.
in it.
Yeah, there is. That's true. John Cusack. I love it. So thank you so much for being here. We've never really talked about Tilda Swinton, but I had this feeling. I feel like Sarah is an appreciator of the Tilda thing.
Oh, yeah. I think that's right. I mean, she's kind of unlike any other actor I can really think of. I want to say the first movie I saw her in might have been We Need to Talk About Kevin, which,
yeah.
you know, that's obviously a very heavy one.
Definitely.
And not one in which she plays a dual role. But yeah, I was just like very struck by her performance and wanted to see more. So yeah, I think, you know, you nailed it. So.
Oh, cool. Very nice.
I mean, We Need to Talk About Kevin that's a movie I still need to see, but you know, where I can claim a little bit having to do with it is that's still, you know, one half of what I still consider to be my greatest not to be confused.
Oh, I remember this
show.
very, very clearly.
And so, I mean, like Tilda Swinton has this long and storied career, and we're going to only talk about 3 great films that she has been a part of. But the first of which is Orlando from 1992, directed by Sally Potter. The second of which, and we're going to jump ahead about 25 years to the next one. So there's a big
jump. Yeah.
big jump there, but to some pretty representative films. The next film we're going to discuss is 2017's Okja, written and directed, or co-written by and directed fully by Bong Joon-ho, in which Tilda Swinton plays a memorable pair of twins. And the final film of this trio comes only 1 year after Okja, which is Suspiria, the 2018 remake of the classic 1977 giallo film directed by Luca Guadagnino, in which Tilda Swinton plays, you know, not exactly twins, but she plays a few interesting and linked roles.
Yeah,
I like that.
definitely.
That's a good way of putting it.
And all not American directors.
Yeah.
Which is fun.
She's not American herself.
Exactly.
She's Scottish/British, I believe.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah.
We should point out, too, that this was true of an episode cycle we did last year, that, you know, we had someone lined up for a close-up, but who does appear a little earlier in the cycle.
Yeah.
Because, so last year,
100%.
Last year the case was Tom Waits, where we did a close-up episode about him with your dad, Madeline, as a guest. But he appeared at the other bookend of that cycle, too, when we talked about Licorice Pizza. And in this episode cycle, well, we've seen a bit of Tilda already, albeit not in a dual role when she appeared as a literary agent in adaptation.
Yeah.
I also think it's
bookends.
important to note that last cycle, when we talked offbeat musicals, we started with a film that was directed by Frank Oz that also features Frank Oz prominently. To bookend it, that was the Muppet movie.
Yeah.
The first movie we're going to talk about, though, Orlando. Tilda Swinton's role in this. She's the titular character
Orlando.
in this. Yeah, this is her show. I think she's in almost every frame of this movie. But before we get into that, I think we should note that although both films are about a man who gets a new lease on life by becoming a woman and also comes to understand some of the ways a patriarchal society disadvantages women, this should not be confused with Tootsie, which is a truly delightful film from 1982 starring Dustin Hoffman, Jessica Lange, Terry Garr, and many others, directed by Sidney Pollack. I love this movie.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
it's a great one.
But
Still
not to be confused with
Still
Orlando.
haven't seen it.
We gotta fix that.
I know. One of these days.
But despite a certain setting that a title like Orlando might put into your mind, it's got nothing to do with the locale in Florida, nor does it have anything to do with the Florida Project.
Yeah.
Right. True.
That is very true.
Which, you know, maybe there'd be no other reason to even remotely associate these movies other than the title.
Right.
Orlando is it's a literary adaptation with many fantastical notes to it. The Florida Project, directed by Sean Baker, pure realism.
Right.
Yeah.
Also has a very versatile actor in it, Willem Dafoe. I actually think of him a little similarly to Tilda Swinton.
Yeah.
In terms of like range and how
yeah.
many people can, you know, like how many different roles he can occupy, the way that he appears in certain filmographies, certain directors' filmographies. So
all reasons to not confuse the Florida Project with Orlando.
Yes, that is very true. That was on my list as well. And just along that similar theme, we should also not confuse Orlando with Miami Vice.
Oh,
You know?
that's true. Yeah.
the show, the movie.
Yeah, any of the above.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even though Orlando more or less moves through the world virtuously, I think we could consider maybe some of Orlando's behavior flirting with Vice.
Yeah, I'd say flirting
Maybe
with Vice.
flirting with Vice,
I'd say
yeah.
like Vice curious.
Okay. Good.
I don't know that they are entirely successful exploring their vices.
That's
but,
true. Yes.
You know, I think they have a desire to try.
There we go.
Yeah.
Go. Yeah.
Yeah, and Orlando kind of messes with timelines a little bit, but it still feels far-fetched in my mind to imagine there'd be like a Linkin Park needle drop in Orlando. But so this film, Orlando, I think it's a landmark role in Tilda Swinton's career, and we've alluded to some reasons why that may be. But, well, let's get to the bottom of it. What is this movie about?
Great question. So we start in the year 1600, and a young nobleman and aspiring poet, Orlando, is bequeathed with a large inheritance from Queen Elizabeth herself, but with one condition, or I guess 3, that he does not fade, does not wither, and does not grow old. Our titular character takes this literally, and throughout the film, they will live over the span of 400 years. In his young adulthood, which takes place during the Little Ice Age and the freezing of the Thames, Orlando falls in love with a visiting Russian princess, only to have his heart broken when the ice thaws and she returns to her mother country. He turns his aspirations away from love and towards poetry, only to have his efforts publicly torn to shreds by a poet he greatly admires. At this, he implores the crown to send him abroad, and he is appointed English ambassador of the Ottoman Empire. After many years in Constantinople, Orlando is asked to pledge his allegiance in battle. But after witnessing a man from the opposing faction being shot dead, he flees and falls into a deep slumber. Upon waking, Orlando discovers a major physical change. They are now a woman. Back in England, Orlando must reckon with the consequences of this sudden transformation in regards to society, love, sex, and eventually birth.
Well done.
Thank you.
This is a funky movie to try to summarize in like a paragraph or 2.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also,
yeah.
not to be confused with They Shall Not Grow Old.
Yeah,
That
that's
too.
true.
Let's not forget.
Orlando, I mean, this was a movie that, like, from the moment it was suggested by you, Madeline, for inclusion in this cycle, this struck me, and I was going in pretty cold then, and even now having seen it, well, I have things I can say about it, and yet still it leaves a very distinct impression, for lack of a better word.
Oh,
Yeah.
definitely. I'm still processing this movie.
Yeah,
I
so,
will say that for sure.
yeah, this was a first time watch for me, but had anyone else here seen it before?
To be honest, I had never even heard of this movie.
Wow.
Yes, I made it 38 some years, and no. When it was brought up, I was like, okay, cool. Like,
You're like,
let's do
right.
it. How about you, Sarah?
Yeah, I'd never seen it, and I didn't know it was a movie. I knew it was a book by Virginia Woolf, which I have not read. I've read some of her other books, but yeah, I'm also kind of still processing it. It was really unlike anything I've ever seen.
Totally. Same.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I had seen this before, and I don't fully remember when or why. My guess, as I was looking into this, is that apparently this movie was largely influential on the 2020, what would have been the 2020 Met Gala. That this would have been their theme and was like the theme of the exhibit from that year,
Oh, wow.
kind of looks inspired by this movie in some way. So my guess would be that I knew about that and that Dougie and I chose to put on this movie for that reason. But I honestly do not fully remember. It might just be because, like, I love Tilda. This is a real breakout role for her. You know, prior to this, she had done a lot of stage work, but this is still early in her film career. So I don't fully remember why I watched this, but I saw this, I want to say, probably during COVID, like definitely in the last 5 or 6 years. And I didn't remember a whole lot about it. I think it's a movie that leaves a distinct impression, but I do think impression is like the key word.
Yes.
I don't know that it leaves a lot of specifics,
Tangible
specifics in your mind. I remembered like the general setting, obviously the change of gender, the spanning of time, were all the impressions that I recalled, but not a whole lot of specifics. And so when we chose to discuss this, I also chose to read the book, which I have here with me with some sticky notes that I may use to refer to things later. I really enjoyed revisiting this movie, but I loved reading this book.
Cool.
I had never actually read any Virginia Woolf, and this has quickly become one of my all-time favorite books.
Wow. All right.
I highly recommend this book. And I was saying to Sarah before we started recording, having not read other Virginia Woolf, my understanding is that this is one of her more accessible entry points because it's more of a narrative than some of her other works. So I definitely recommend giving Orlando the book a try, particularly if you enjoyed Orlando the film.
Nice.
I love that. She knows how to write.
Oh, yeah.
And so I would be really tempted to see what was on the page that then, went on the screen. because I dug what this movie was going for. I
Yeah.
felt like about every 20 minutes there was something that happened where I was like, oh wow, okay, this is where this movie's going now.
Yeah.
And I felt like it was always something kind of interesting.
Yeah.
I felt like I was able to kind of put myself briefly in the eyes and the mind of somebody who was seeing this in the early 90s when
Yeah.
this would have been a pretty daring movie
Yeah.
to pull off. Also, for $4 million, this movie looks amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
really nice cinematography.
Absolutely
on this movie.
amazing. All the costumes, all the locations.
Yeah,
like,
they shoot almost entirely on location. Like
Yeah.
basically nothing is on sets. They shoot in Russia a lot, like the icy scenes.
Sure.
Even though in the story they're still meant to be in England, like I said,
Right.
during the like Little Ice Age. But they film in Russia because they want to be able to use real snow and
Yeah.
ice.
it looks great. I was along for the ride. I don't know when I'm going to see this movie again, but this feels like a movie that is going to be in my life for a little bit.
I'm
Yeah.
glad to hear
Yeah.
that. Sarah, what did you think of this movie?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It almost felt like kind of dreamlike to me,
Yeah.
like almost like it was like the dreams of Orlando. And I mean, I feel like we see them sleeping at different points.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then like there's that one point where like they wake up and they have transformed.
Yeah.
It's also something I'm still kind of chewing on because
Yeah.
when you said impressions, like that kind of spoke to me because it also kind of feels almost like a painting or like
Oh,
art.
yeah.
And like these concepts more than like a concrete plot.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was listening to this podcast called 70 Millimeter, an episode that they did about Orlando where they were talking about how it has this kind of vignette structure
Yeah.
that when you have something that's crossing time like this, it's not very common to see it presented in these little episodes, which I agree with some of the impressions that have been stated so far, that there's something very dreamlike about it. And that, it's like it doesn't matter too much whether you consider it tangible reality or fantasy. It's just all the worlds that this character goes to are fascinating to consider as a group. It's I've acknowledged that this movie, it leaves a maybe kind of a strange impression after you see it, but an enjoyable one. I enjoyed it too. I think what adds to my sense of this being like a slightly tough movie to pin down is that. So it was my first time seeing it, but I have seen some films by its director before, Sally Potter.
I noticed that you had logged some of her films on Letterboxd, and this is the only film of hers I've seen. So I was curious what you thought of the others that you'd seen.
Yeah,
Same.
so it's not very many, but there are two other films of hers that I've seen, namely Ginger and Rosa, which is a coming-of-age movie from 2012 starring a young Elle Fanning. That one, like it's been enough time since I've seen this and the other film that I'll mention that I could use a rewatch to say much of substance about them, but that's like kind of a coming of age story with a backdrop of political activism.
Yeah.
And I think if there's any similarity to Orlando, I guess it would be tonal. That they both were movies where they don't feel, they're not particularly loud movies. Like there's definitely like an airiness about them. The other film of hers that I had seen was this film called The Party, which is a little more recent, from 2017. It's a movie I like assumed it would have been based on a play, but no, it was written by Sally Potter for the screen. But it has very much a play-like structure, and it's a small cast. It's set in only one place. It could easily be a stage play. And that I remember being a little snappier and having more. I mean, it's not really about light subject matter, but it had more humor in it.
Although, can I just quickly interject to say one thing that I loved about the book that I think you see glimmers of in the movie? This book is very funny. This is a very funny book.
Yeah,
and I think that there are really effective moments of humor in this movie.
Yeah.
And some are kind of pulled directly from the book, and some are, I think, just from Sally Potter. But I think there are these little, like, snappy, you almost miss them kind of lines that show glimmers of Sally Potter being really capable of writing something like kind of quippier.
Totally.
Yeah.
And there are all these fourth wall breaks too.
Yeah, which
I want to talk about that.
yeah, we'll probably get more into that in a bit. Yeah, I mean, another thing that all the movies we're talking tonight have in common is that a lot of them have pretty long, like they're gestating for a long time.
Yeah.
And because this
right.
is a originally Sally Potter pitched this in 1984, which is 8 years before the movie finally comes out, and she's told at the time that this is not it's impossible to make this movie. Like that this is not a marketable movie. It's too expensive. It's not interesting. Like this adaptation is not going to work. And eventually she starts writing the script in 1988. Even that is 4 years before this movie finally comes out. So it I think was a passion project for her, a brainchild for a very long time. I think Tilda gets attached like around the time she's writing the script, like 88, 89.
I heard something similar, that it is not a surprise that the money side of making movies is not a particularly enjoyable one for Tilda Swinton.
Yeah.
But she said really openly, I got involved with this project. I fell in love with it. I absolutely wanted this to happen. And so she sang for her supper for all the money people in a way that she never had before. And she's like, I don't even really know how to do this, but basically she and Sally Potter self-produced or scrounged up the money themselves. It was absolutely a passion project.
Yeah, and Tilda Swinton talks about how she read this book when she was like 15, and that she did kind of have this fantasy, as I think a lot of actors, and particularly young actors, do when they read stories that they really connect with, where they're like, could I play this role? Like, what would it be like to step into Orlando's shoes? And unlike in the other movies we're discussing tonight, Tilda technically in this movie only plays a single character. Yeah. This character spans both time and gender. But I wanted to ask you guys, in what ways do you think her performance was able to differentiate between Orlando as a man and Orlando as a woman?
I mean, I was actually going to say that I kind of liked that the performance felt like consistent across both genders. I think if it had been like vastly different, it sort of would have weakened something in the movie. It was kind of
cartoony at that point.
Yeah. And I don't know what it's like in the book, whether there's a lot of similarities in that sort of change and like, you know, how they are as a man versus a woman. But yeah, just like what the movie was trying to say about Orlando's identity and how they moved through the world before and after becoming a woman, and they were already androgynous to begin with. And the fact they didn't try to make Tilda like kind of a super stereotypical masculine figure. Those two identities just end up feeling like very close for the character. And I think that's kind of the point, is like this separation of gender that most of us have grown up with believing in is like maybe less real than we think, or kind of more malleable than we think.
Yeah.
I felt very similar.
Yeah,
to what you're saying there.
I agree to that point. I mean, you know, there is another actor in the film who also was, you know, who maybe like, I'm not quite sure how to describe her relationship with gender, but Quentin Crisp. Yeah.
Thank you.
Who plays Queen Elizabeth early on.
Who we see early on.
right away.
And I mean,
sets the tone.
It sets the tone. It shows you what this movie is trying to play with. What does it mean to be a woman? What does it mean to be a man? What is gender? Like it defies your expectations early on.
Yeah. And so but I got this sense in the movie that it's not really, there's not an intention of taking a strong stance about any of those characters being set as one or another gender. It's just human experience. That's the unifying factor. But I did sense that as, you know, the very long lifespan of Orlando goes along, I did sense a little more relaxation in the feminine period. So there's a feeling of liberation. I feel like Tilda's performance there is a little more like she's a little more physically liberated there. I mean, that's, you know, there's that scene of her running through the hedge maze.
Incredible.
Incredible
scene. Yeah. Incredible moment in the score also.
Definitely.
Yeah. To me, maybe one of the standout moments of the cinematography in this film, which is shot by Alexei Rodionov. Hope I said that correctly. But yeah, it's like, you know, there's just a freedom of motion in the second half where in the first half, it really does seem as though Orlando is literally buttoned up. I mean, you know, that Orlando lives through a small ice age, but, you know, there's just something more reserved about the character. Even in that first scene, like sitting by the tree, that fourth wall break, it's clever, but I don't think snappy is the word I would use for it. It feels, and reserved also isn't the right word for it.
Yeah.
It just feels very kind of like quietly stately.
Yeah, I mean, Sally Potter speaks a little bit about her choice to add the direct-to-camera, like fourth wall breaks. And she says that because in the book the book is written as a biography of Orlando, and thus Virginia Woolf, I guess, kind of takes the place of a biographer character, where there's a lot of direct to the reader moments. And so I think Sally Potter was trying to duplicate that on screen.
Yeah. While I agree, relaxed, there's a little bit of that. I also feel like the transition from male to female gives Orlando more to fight for.
Yeah.
Like there's a little bit more of a sense of, I don't want to just be pushed around by society's constraints or the way that the world sees me. Like I want to have agency for myself.
Yeah, because they've had the opportunity up until that point in their life to have agency and to have autonomy. And now suddenly society is approaching them and saying like, well, you can no longer own the land that you're entitled to until you have a son.
I also find it kind of interesting that what kickstarts this transition is Orlando also coming up against a gender norm of like having to be a soldier.
Totally.
Somebody that is willing to kill for a cause.
Whereas Orlando is like a soft boy.
Exactly.
Like he is an artist up until that point. Like he is not a soldier.
No, totally. I think it's very smart from a perspective of how you tell the story. Maybe there have been other things in my life that have made me feel a little different. But here's something, you used the word before, tangible. Here's something that feels kind of tangible.
Yeah.
It's like, this is something that the world is putting on me that I don't want to own in any way. And now all of a sudden things change for Orlando.
Yeah.
I find it kind of interesting that as the character feels like they have to fight for something, they become happier.
Yeah.
And I feel like that is a lot like life. If something is not hard, it probably means you aren't pushing yourself.
Yeah, totally. Because you're already touching on this, and I wanted to ask beyond the performance. Do you think the film draws distinctions between these two sides of the character in other ways, and particularly in their circumstances? I think that's exactly what you're speaking to.
Totally.
Well, my mind immediately goes as well when we talk about Orlando having something to fight for or against. That scene, I think it's pretty early, post transition in the movie when you see Orlando in a room with, I believe it's like Jonathan Swift, Alexander Pope. There's another writer whose name is not coming to me right now, but where they're like, I don't have the lines in front of me, but they're talking about gender norms.
Yeah. Pretty derogatorily.
Yeah.
They all hate their wives.
Yeah.
Right. And but this is like, that's a good moment of, and well, I mean, Madeline, you've read the book, so you can say like how accurate that is to what Virginia Woolf originally wrote. But it's a good moment of taking these figures who a lot of people probably would revere without question and considering who would they realistically have been in their time, when you are considering them in their unvarnished forms. And so it's, not just a moment for the character to face their odds, but for I felt like as a viewer, that was a helpful moment of perspective.
Yeah.
In considering, like just in understanding like the world that the character is living in. It's like, we're going to shortly talk about a Luca Guadagnino film, but it's a little bit like in, say with Call Me By Your Name, that's a movie set at the beginning of the AIDS epidemic. And there's, AIDS is not mentioned in the movie, but if you know that detail, adds a whole lot to the story. I feel like, this is a more salient example within this narrative, but I think I felt like this served a similar function because if you really understand the odds that Orlando is against, and also the odds that become more visible with the gender transition, that the stakes grow higher, and even and these odds don't always appear in the most bombastic or violent way. It's down to more. I mean, these are characters that live in a charmed world, but even their mundane details.
Yeah. So in the book, when Orlando initially transitions into becoming a woman, the book initially says that like they have not changed in any way, in any like none of their characteristics have changed other than physically. But later in the book, it goes on to kind of correct that. And so I'm reading from the book now, where she writes, her modesty as to her writing, her vanity as to her person, her fears for her safety, all seem to hint that what was said a short time ago about there being no change in Orlando the man and Orlando the woman was ceasing to be altogether true. She was becoming a little more modest, as women are of her brains, and a little more vain, as women are of her person. Again, this book is written in 1928. So,
her looks, maybe, yeah.
Yeah. But I totally agree with what all of you guys are saying. I don't think that Tilda like plays this role distinctly differently. I really like what you said, Sarah, about the consistency. It feels like such a consistent performance. But I do think that Orlando, like before... Orlando as a man just feels like he's kind of trapped in these societal expectations of men at the time. And then Orlando's woman is trapped in societal expectations of women at the time.
Right.
And the book often kind of refers to Orlando as gender fluid. It's a little bit less like they are a man up until this point and then they are a woman. Physically, that seems to be the case in the book also. But there's a little bit like, oh, but this is just a human. This is just a person. This is just like a spirit.
And maybe this was more a decision than anything supernatural. Because the movie presents it sort of like something happened. And all of a sudden, right?
The book does that too, and actually in kind of an even wackier way, where it's like spirits with like trumpets are emerging, and kind of like we're here proclaiming this big change that is happening.
Maybe
Interesting.
the only vestige of that you get in the movie is that angel in the
At
sky.
the eye. Yes,
I
totally.
do think that is the one hint at that for sure.
Very cool.
Yeah. Because that was actually something watching the movie that confused me a little bit, like that particular detail. I was like,
It's a strange note to end on.
yeah, this is cool, but it does feel a little more on the nose than a lot of other things in this movie. But if it's an allusion to the book, that gives me a little more peace of mind about it.
I would guess also that Sally Potter just really wanted to utilize Jimmy Somerville to
A greater extent.
a greater extent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say, like, during the transition or right before it, what you were talking earlier, Emilio, about the battle scene, and that really stuck with me. Specifically when Orlando sees like the enemy soldier fall from the wall and goes to him, and I think it's his supervisor is like, he's not a human being, like he's an enemy,
Right.
and that just, it's clear that Orlando does not feel that way. And, very soon after that, he goes to sleep and wakes up as a woman. And that just felt kind of striking to me, and that kind of identifying those traits with womanhood, or like this tenderness that is kind of stereotypically associated with that gender.
Yeah.
So that scene really struck with me.
Big time. Yeah.
Yeah.
On that note, are there any shout outs or other notable scenes that we want to bring up from this film?
Well, for me, the other part that I have to mention is from the first half of the movie, and that is the romance that happens, during the Little Ice Age period. I believe it's Orlando has a brief entanglement with, I think it's Princess Sasha.
Mm-hmm.
And it's pretty clear early on that these two are in love with one another, but then there's I don't have the lines written down, but there's an exchange that they have. It's about the longevity of love, where, this is at the point where Orlando already knows. Orlando is early on, and at this point, his fate, but already knows some of what's to come, and is depressed about the idea about the temporariness.
Yeah,
about
that's a great line
of love.
Very affecting. Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas Princess Sasha is more interested in reveling in the moment.
Right.
Like, she knows all things are temporary. We might as well enjoy them. And I think that's, even as a viewer, you haven't quite comprehended exactly where this story is going to go yet. So I think, this is, it's early on enough that I had not comprehended quite how far the extent of this lifespan would go. And so I think that even just in like a more contained way, I found that very resonant when you think within, the more realistic expanse of someone's actual life.
For sure.
Yeah.
Also, that was just, that whole general chapter of the movie was a great showcase for cinematography too.
Definitely.
Yeah, for sure. One of the things I really like about this movie is how there are some things that have kind of mirrors from in the first act and the second act, like Orlando as a man and Orlando as a woman. When we're talking about the romance with Sasha, he says to her, "You're mine." And she says, "But why?" And he says, "Because I adore you."
Mm-hmm.
And then after Orlando has become a woman and she returns to England, she encounters he's like a duke
Archduke Harry.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
the guy who proposes to her.
Yeah, the guy
yes.
that proposes to her. And he says to her, as Orlando the woman, he says, "I am England and you are mine." And she says, "On what grounds?" And he says, "I adore you." And she says, "And
Nice.
this means that I belong to you." So the book doesn't necessarily do this. I really like that Sally Potter chooses
that.
to bring this into the film. Orlando now is on the other side of this,
Right.
and now has to kind of gain experience of how it feels on the other side.
Yeah, to have
Yeah.
to have been the one
Yeah.
to insist that some centuries back, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, interesting. I love that. That's great.
Another thing that just stuck with me that was just kind of funny was the poet earlier on ends up being I think it's an editor
Yeah.
in
Yep.
the modern 90s setting.
Yo,
and
that's
he's
so
still
Cloud
just
Atlas.
kind of
Yeah.
insufferable
Yeah,
and pompous.
Yeah.
So I really liked that connection.
Yeah, this is a guy that is a dual role.
There we
you
go.
know?
Yeah.
And
Not just-
another
yeah.
actually,
dual role.
even more so than Orlando, that this actor is Heathcote Williams, which what a name.
What a name. Yeah.
But yeah, he plays
So
Nick
nice
Green,
you
the
have to have
poet,
him
and also
twice.
the publisher at the end.
Yeah.
It's a very fitting movie to have coexist in a cycle with Cloud Atlas.
Yeah, for
Exactly.
sure.
Totally.
Yeah.
As was mentioned before, sleep, very important component to this film, right?
Absolutely.
Also, a very important component to Tilda Swinton's outside of film art life. Are you guys familiar with the performance art that she's done where she sleeps in a glass box at MoMA?
I am not.
This is pretty wild. Tilda Swinton has gone all over the world and slept in a glass enclosure for just 8 hours. She's just on a mattress, chilling out, fast asleep,
Not
and she just
7
lets people
days.
watch her. Exactly, not 7 days. But she's done this at MoMA. I know she's done it at a couple of other museums around the world.
Have you seen her do this?
I have not personally seen her do this, but this is something that the internet told me about, and I was able to see photographic evidence of outside of Virginia Woolf, outside of Orlando.
Yeah.
This is a Tilda Swinton interest in what happens to you in sleep and maybe what happens to viewers that are interested in your sleep.
Love
AKA
that.
what we don't do when we record this.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
But well, I mean, to that point, I'm just thinking now, I just took a quick look at her filmography to see if she's ever played this character, and she hasn't. But I think it sounds to me like Tilda Swinton is born to someday play Rip Van Winkle.
Sure. Yeah, I could see that.
Totally.
Yeah.
Let's bring it on. Yeah.
Yeah.
Green light that now. Some production companies got to do it.
Yeah. At some point in her lifetime, this needs to happen.
Totally. We have to at least acknowledge Billy Zane as Shelmerdine.
We got to
Yeah.
do it. Got to do it.
It's so funny to me that he's second build and on the cover of the DVD.
Hardly in the movie.
He is in 12 minutes
Yes.
of this movie. He does not enter this movie until an hour 11 and he exits at an hour 23.
Yeah, in a movie that's under an hour and a half.
Exactly.
So this is brief but consequential, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, his presence in one lifetime, it's assumed, right, that the
Yeah.
offspring,
I think that is the
is-
implication.
is old Billy Zane's.
Yeah, I would say so. And
Yeah.
I think one of my favorite moments is when they meet,
yeah.
because she has emerged from the hedge maze in a new outfit
Just
and in a new
in the
century,
grass.
Yeah.
and she just collapses. And
Yep.
he I didn't write it down, but he comes to her and he says something like, "Oh, can I help you?" And she says, "Oh, I'm dead."
Yeah.
And then also, "Will you marry me?"
Right.
And I love her brazenness.
Yeah, I do too. I also love in that scene the one take conversation that goes back and forth
Yeah.
between them.
Mm.
So cool. Oh my gosh. Really almost breathtaking in
Yeah.
terms of how the camera moves back and forth between them when they start talking about gender, they start talking about social expectations and maybe some of the harm that does
Yeah.
and some of the ways that if you try to ignore that and push all the noise out, you can find a certain amount of freedom.
Yeah, exactly.
I thought that was one of the standout moments in the whole movie. So.
Yeah.
Billy Zane comes in.
He gets the job done.
He comes in throwing heat.
He's so effective in period pieces.
He is.
Yeah.
He looks the part of a homie from the 1800s. He really does. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, he's one of those people that's like unmissable on screen. And I was looking at his credits, and he's still doing stuff. I just happen not to have seen any of it.
He had a heyday.
Yeah.
From a little before this to maybe a little bit after
Yeah.
Titanic, but I think it didn't really go too far.
This is around the same time as Twin Peaks. I mean,
Yeah.
he's in season 2, so this is a little before.
Yeah,
Got it,
he appears
I think.
in what many people consider to be the lull in Twin Peaks.
Sure.
Although it's like, admittedly, as you know, a very ardent Twin Peaks fan, I think that if you're doing a watch through of the series, doesn't matter how good or bad you think season 2 is, got to go through it.
I agree with that. Yeah.
Because of the finale, but also you got to know how it gets there. There's even, I think, even when it sags a bit, there are still some good subplots there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I totally agree with that. I just also want to say, we've talked about the maze. The maze scene is great. Sally Potter says on one of the special features, this maze, not in the script. It's not in the book. It's just, it was at the location. They had not planned this scene, and then they happened to be filming at this location that has this hedge maze, and she's trying to figure out a way to include it because it is so incredible, and she knows that it's going to look incredible on screen. And I love that she decides to use it as a transition between time period. It's just so cool.
I mean, conceptually, a labyrinth or maze is so in keeping with what this movie is about.
Yeah, and it's got this like very frenetic editing, like as she's turning the corners and then suddenly she's in her new outfit, which both of these looks are excellent.
Yeah. Any last things we want to say before we move on?
Very quick anecdotal thing. It's just I'd have to watch the movie a second time to catch this person, but I'm looking at the cast and I see credited as a second valet as Toby Jones. Well, now he's a well-known actor. But he
now that you pull up a picture of him, I've seen him.
He's another person with I'm not sure where in his filmography to begin. There's a very long list,
yes.
but
You know what? I did recognize him.
yeah, I'd have to see it again to recognize him. But Frost Nixon, Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, Empire of Light, that Sam Mendes movie from a few years ago. He was in the MCU for a bit, Captain America, the Winter Soldier.
All right, getting them checks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad you pointed this out because as I was watching, I clocked his face and then I forgot to look up who this was.
Yeah, but I'd have to watch, I mean, it's funny because I'd have to watch Orlando again to know where he appears in the movie as a second valet. Yeah. But, there's a young Toby Jones making an early name for himself.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, what do we say? Can we
I
shift
think we're
over?
Moving on to movie number 2.
I think so.
25 years in the future, and a lot happens in Tilda's career in this time. Adaptation, which we've recently talked about, happens in that time. The first movie that I ever saw Tilda Swinton in also happens in that time too, which is The Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
That's probably true for me as well.
In which she plays
a
witch. The witch, the White Witch.
More on that later.
Yeah. And well, that was an instantly memorable role too. That was, from that movie on, I didn't have to guess. I didn't have to remind myself what face went with the name Tilda Swinton. It was burned into my brain from that movie. And then right before the movie we're about to talk about, Okja, there's actually the year before is released another movie where she plays two characters who are twins, and that's the Coen brothers film Hail Caesar, where she plays Thora and Thessaly Thacker.
It's a mouthful.
So, but great alliterated names who are, they are twins and rival gossip columnists in 1950s Hollywood.
Yeah.
Not a lot of screen time in that movie, but they do have some very, to use a word that came up earlier, some snappy appearances in that story. And they really do. I mean, it's really the Coen brothers who are driving that plot forward. But, Tilda Swinton is a vessel as two characters to drive the plot forward consequentially in that film.
Yeah. The interesting thing I think about those twins is that they feel, to me, like pretty interchangeable. Like she is, I think, purposefully, people are always getting them mixed up. Like, he never knows which one he's talking to at any time. So she purposefully is pretty much playing them the same.
Right.
Yeah. So she'll often appear as either twin, and like there will be a tracking shot where like either Josh Brolin or Alden Ehrenreich is moving along maybe like a courtyard, and then she'll just kind of pop up like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. There's a memorable scene in a restaurant with her as one of them too. I think maybe the biggest distinction there, if not in her performance, is in the costumes.
Yeah.
Right.
Totally.
Yeah, and Tilda Swinton, it's worth saying here. I mean, we've acknowledged it some already, but a great wearer of costumes.
Big time. I think
Definitely.
fashion is an enormous component to her public image. Like, I think
Yeah.
she's got impeccable looks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I also want to say in this interim between movies that we're talking about, Dougie insisted that we watch one more movie in which Tilda Swinton plays multiple roles. We watched the movie Technolust from 2002, which is the same year as adaptation, where she plays 4 roles.
I heard about this.
Yeah,
actually,
so I watched this movie. I thought it was very fun. It's like a sci-fi movie that's basically like a woman who creates.
It's like robots or something.
They're not
Like clones or
robots.
something?
They're basically clones.
Yeah, that's what it is.
It's like she plays like a DNA scientist who makes these like self-replicating automatons. So they're like kind of cyborgy clones. They don't
Yeah.
feel like robots
Right,
to me.
right.
It's a funky movie, but it's fun. They're like stealing. They're like, so they sustain themselves off of semen. So
How?
she's like stealing, like one of the clones is
Semen
like
demon.
yeah. One of the clones is like
Sorry,
going
I had to go there.
out into the world and hooking up with men and stealing their semen and then like making it into tea for like the other clones.
Wow.
It's so funky, but it was very fun.
Technolust.
Technolust was like a good time and it's on archive. So
Okay.
we were
All right.
like, why the hell not?
Well,
Yeah.
if Colonel Stephen Lockjaw had been aware of this film, he could have bolstered his case,
Yeah, he could have.
at the end of one battle
Yeah,
after
for the
another.
Christmas adventurers.
Yeah.
Guys, come on. This is a thing.
Yeah. But I think she does a really good job of playing like what's more than a dual role. What's a four quadruple. Because the scientist is like a little frumpier. She's like wearing a big wig and glasses, and like whereas all the clones are like very sexy. And
There
so
you go.
and even they feel like kind of distinct from each other. So I thought this was very fun, and it just speaks to her power, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But so now we have fast forwarded to 2017 when the film Okja comes out. And this is a film that is primarily about a titular pig and
Super Pig.
a super pig
Yeah.
and the pig's companion, who is a teenager named Mija. But, this may, some of those details may ring a little familiar relating to a film released a few years later. Okja, despite what it's about, is not to be confused with Pig.
That's
Yes.
true.
Yes, the
Yeah.
movie starring Nicolas Cage from 2021. I think the debut directorial effort of Michael Sarnowski. Has anyone else here seen that movie?
I saw that movie
Yeah.
in
Definitely.
theaters. Yeah.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. It's weird. You got to strap in, but it's good.
Yeah, it's definitely a trip, but it was a trip that I enjoyed, and I think a great later career role for Nicolas Cage.
For
yeah,
sure.
I remember really liking that movie because Nick Cage is great in it. I think Alex Wolff is really great in that.
Yeah.
That comes
Agreed,
out
yeah.
about around the same time as Old, and I just remember seeing both of those like in the same summer and being really impressed with his range as a young actor. So
Yeah, it's 2 movies with 3 letters in the title.
yeah,
There you
And
go.
yeah, that was like I didn't see Old at the time, but Pig, that was like a early back to theaters movie too.
Got
yeah,
it.
same.
Yeah, that was maybe like the 6th or 7th movie I saw back in theaters
There you go.
Totally.
Very
post
nice.
COVID.
We should also say, not to be confused with Pig, but we're talking about this animal who has this like close bond and is then taken away from the person they've bonded with and has this journey trying to come back to them. And because of all of that, this movie is not to be confused with EO.
Yeah.
I was going to write this down because of the brevity of the title.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you said it.
Thank you. That's
Yeah.
another
Very
one
nice.
I saw in theaters, and I remember really enjoying it. And man, I love that pig. And man, I love that donkey.
Let's do it. Did you have anything for this?
I do. It's a bit of a stretch.
I love this.
I
We
saw
love
that-
stretches.
Stretch
Okay.
away.
Stretches are good.
Okay. I saw this recently. I'm going to go for it. So, not to be confused with Margaret, the 2011 Kenneth Lonergan drama starring Anna Paquin about
Okay.
a teenage girl who makes some really bad decisions. So, Bong Joon-ho, the director of Okja, he gave an interview. He was asked what Okja means, and he said, It doesn't really have any meaning. It is a female name in Korea, but it's a little outdated. Not many kids have it now. It's kind of like Margaret.
Oh, I love that. I think
Perfect.
this lines up perfectly.
I love
Thank
that.
you.
I love
Nice.
that was even the example he used.
Also, Okja is, a film about a teenage girl as
Yes,
well.
I was-
but
that's
who
where I thought
makes-
you were
making
going.
some questionable choices.
But
Yeah.
made a lot of good decisions too.
I think so too, but
Yeah.
the world would, or the
Yeah.
adults around her might see it as
Yeah,
somewhat
exactly.
questionable.
Yeah.
And who in English lettering, her name begins with an M.
That's
Right.
true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you
A
go.
2-syllable name.
Yeah.
I would also say that Okja is not to be confused with the film Oh God. This is a film from 1977. It's a comedy that stars George Burns and, oddly enough, John Denver. Has anybody here seen this movie before?
Nope.
No.
This was
But-
actually a very worthwhile film. It is directed by Carl Reiner. And
Okay.
I have not seen this for many, many years, but this was a favorite of two people that I mentioned before on this podcast, very influential to me on my taste in art and film. My next door neighbors, Dean and Martha, growing up, they really liked Oh God. I saw it with them. I remember thinking it was very funny. Oh God, not to be confused with Okja.
And also, there's a John Denver needle drop in Okja.
You are so right. Come on now.
Oh,
That's what I'm saying,
Wow.
guys. Can't- not to be confused.
I thought someone was going to say orca.
Yeah.
That's
Oh, we
true.
still could.
I also was thinking of Not Okay. Has anybody seen Not Okay?
No.
It's the one with
Oh, yeah,
Zoe
yeah, yeah.
Deutsch with like
Yes.
the, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I randomly saw this movie. I saw like the first half of it. It's not bad,
It's
but
not
it
bad.
not
the
oh,
first half
it's-
of it is not
the
bad.
first half of it's
Can't
not
speak
bad.
about the second half.
Exactly, but Not Okay. Not Okja. So
So we've talked a little bit about what this movie is about, but Julian, how about going into a little more detail? What is Okja about?
All right. So, in the year 2007, leadership of the far-reaching Mirando Corporation is assumed by Lucy Mirando, an heir to the family fortune eager to beautify the company's image and work beyond the past wrongdoings of her founding grandfather and reckless twin sister, Nancy. Lucy's main project in this broader undertaking involves the genetic engineering of environmentally friendly super pigs, drawing from a specimen discovered in Chile and brought to the company farm in Arizona. 26 of these super pigs are sent to farms in countries home to Mirando offices. Fast forward 10 years to 2017, and we're in rural South Korea, one of said countries, where a teenager named Mija lives with her farmer grandfather, Bong, who has raised one of these pigs, who they call Okja, and Okja is clearly Mija's best friend. For that reason, when eccentric zoologist and representative of the Mirando Corporation, Johnny Wilcox, and others from the company arrive one day to announce that Okja has won the company's Super Pig competition and will be brought to New York for a public celebration, Mija is understandably distraught and sets out to rescue Okja from the company's grasp and bring her back to the mountains, their home. Mija sets out for Seoul first, where she successfully locates Okja and follows the truck carrying her, only for Okja to be set free in a roadblock by the Animal Liberation Front, an international rebel group. After the ALF takes Mija and Okja into their own truck and seemingly offer Mija the choice between bringing Okja back home or letting her travel to New York as a vessel for exposing the wrongdoings of the Mirando Corporation, an intentional mistranslation lets Okja continue on the corporate path to the U.S., but that does not stop Mija from continuing her own quest to save her beloved pig, Super Pig.
right on.
Yeah.
Yeah. That sounds like the movie I saw.
Definitely.
Yeah. And so this was the only film of the three we're discussing for this episode that I had seen before. I saw it not when it came out, but a few years later. I saw it in 2020, but this was early enough that it was a pre-COVID watch.
Mhm.
I think it might have been Leap Day that year that I watched this movie.
Okay.
And the timing of this, it's a little meaningful because this is right around the time when Parasite won Best Picture at the Oscars.
Is that why you watch this?
Yes.
Okay.
I had wanted to see
Wanted
it
to stock
anyway.
up on some Bong Joon-ho.
Exactly. Yeah, I had a little bit of a wave of watching his movies at the beginning of that year. I think the first film I watched in 2020 was Memories of Murder.
Love that movie.
That's an excellent movie.
That movie fucking rips, man.
I watched it at Lincoln Center at the Walter Reed Theater. And then I think also on Netflix around that time, I watched Snowpiercer too. And those were pre-Oscar win, and Okja was post-Oscar win. But still, I had a little series going there. To this day, there's actually only one Bong Joon-ho movie I haven't seen, which is The Host, which I've heard great things about, and I'm excited to see at some point, hopefully pretty soon. But I saw Okja at that time. I liked it then. I think I came away thinking that it maybe wasn't quite on the level of Parasite, but still a very fun, enjoyable, and resonant movie. Coming back to it now, I'll elaborate, but I still think it's good. In fact, I think it's even better than I initially gave it credit for. So it's still maybe not what I'd put at the top of the Bong Joon-ho pyramid, but a great movie, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think this was my first Bong Joon-ho movie because I saw this when it came out. I was not yet living in New York when this came out, and so I did not have an opportunity to see this in its extremely limited theatrical run. So I watched this on Netflix, and I remember really enjoying it. And because I was not going in, like Parasite was not out yet, and I had not previously, I maybe had seen Snowpiercer at that point. I probably watched them around the same time, I would guess. So I wasn't going in with comparisons in that way. And Bong Joon-ho's filmography is interesting because I try generally not to rank movies in a director's filmography, but also Parasite and Mickey 17 are on very different levels for me. So I try to not do that though. I really love this movie, and I promise I'm not going to get preachy about this, but when I first watched this, I was not a vegetarian. And I've now been a vegetarian for 6 years, so I much more enjoyed this watch because it made me feel less sick, I think. I think this movie was for me what Babe and Chicken Little were for Dougie, which was part of my motivation eventually to become vegetarian.
Interesting.
Yeah.
How about you, Sarah? Any?
Yeah, I mean, I'd never seen it. This was my first watch. I have seen some of his other films and really loved them. I did like this film. I thought tonally it gave me some whiplash. I feel like the first half of the movie, there's a little bit of a zaniness to it. There's that incredible chase scene, and it's exhilarating. It's kind of funny. There is a lot of humor throughout, but by the end of it, I found it so incredibly bleak. I have to be honest. It made me so sad.
I think that is intentional.
The scenes at the factory farm, super depressing. And that sprinkled in with some really heartwarming moments. There was a lot going on tonally that overall I do think it worked. But I'm still kind of digesting it.
I think that is absolutely justified. This movie definitely, I don't know if I cried the first time I watched this. I definitely cried this time. This movie makes me cry for sure. And I'm not a big crier at movies, but this gets me.
I get it. I was surprised how affecting this movie was. This movie reminded me a lot, oddly enough, of Don't Look Up.
Yeah, I thought about that.
I am not vegetarian, but I do feel pretty anti-rampant capitalism, and I am very suspicious of corporate altruism. So all of that definitely worked on me. I got huge Cate Blanchett and Don't Look Up vibes with Tilda Swinton.
Yeah.
With Lucy in particular. And with Nancy, I got the Mark Rylance character vibes from Don't Look Up. The super disconnected, almost something kind of off about them. And just very headstrong about the world of business. Yeah. And so I felt like I was seeing this kind of through the eyes of having digested Don't Look Up, and found it to be really almost sweet. I kind of liked a lot of what was going on in this movie. It mostly really worked on me, so I'm glad I saw it. This was my first time seeing this movie, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was new to this.
You're talking about kind of the rampant capitalism and the messaging that this movie has around it. And I saw this the day after I watched this time the day after I finally saw I Love Boosters, the new Boots Riley film, and I think they fit actually very well together.
They do.
That's another movie that really gets into that, and that's not something that you necessarily get from the trailer of I Love Boosters. I think it's kind of I want to keep it spoiler free. It's like kind of a pleasant surprise that the movie really does bring in like the effects that these like large corporations, whether it be in I Love Boosters, it's like fashion merchandising and how that affects like manufacturing overseas.
Right. Yeah.
And this movie gets into a little bit of that as well.
Sure.
Yeah, that's a great comparison. And yeah, and although if you've seen Sorry to Bother You, I think some of the themes of I Love Boosters will be surprising is not the right word. It doesn't lessen the thrill of them, but you'll think they're fitting for Boots Riley.
Yeah.
But yeah, and Okja, well, I think I can appreciate it a lot more now. It's, I had seen some of these other Bong Joon-ho films at the time, but something I can appreciate a lot more about it now is the sense of corporate satire.
Yeah.
And that I think, just satire as a genre, or if you call it a genre or mode of storytelling, is something that I just have a deeper appreciation of. I always have appreciated it, but especially, the satires that we've engaged with on this podcast, A Face in the Crowd, Network, Bamboozled, Eddington, things like that, to appreciate what exactly the themes are of films like that. I can see more of that strand in Okja now watching it, but it is also of if we're keeping it to satires that we've covered or just satires in general, one of the most wholesome, I think. I mean, there is a very, very sincere character at the core of this story in Mija.
And like a sincere outcome for their character too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's, that's a persistent theme for Bong Joon-ho. I mean, like Snowpiercer is also very much about capitalism, wealth gap satire as well. I mean, Parasite, what is it if not that? And then when it comes to like earlier films of his, it's not that that's a prevalent theme, but it definitely doesn't feel absent from consideration.
Yeah.
In certain earlier films of his.
Yeah, like whether or not it's capitalism, it's still like power structure. Like Mother is a lot about like, power structure in the sense of like, somebody with less power and like how they are pushed around by a system.
Definitely. And then Memories of Murder. I mean, like you don't see, unlike in Okja, you don't see any scenes in the US in that movie, but there's a very consequential thing that happens relating to sending information to the US in that movie. That's also like, it's, I think, power crossed with human behavior, and that I'm remembering now that there is like a character in Memories of Murder that kind of becomes the loose cannon or like the live wire.
Yep.
That makes me think, the way that performance is directed makes me think a lot of Jake Gyllenhaal in Okja.
He was my shout out. Like what?
He's like such a cilantro kind of performance. I think like some people are like, I'm all for this, and some people are like, this insults me watching it.
Yeah.
But
I think it's fun,
I think it's very pointed though about the ways that certain people that like to project a way of life that they live are actually insulate themselves from.
Totally. One of my favorite things about his performance is that his vocal affectation is completely different when he's on camera.
Yes.
And I think that's a really cool choice.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We've sung his praises before. Nightcrawler in particular. He knows what he's doing.
And I think that I watched this in close proximity to seeing John Mulaney in the Sack Lunch Bunch too, where he plays Mr. Music, and he was cast as Mr. Music because of this role.
Yeah.
Okay.
Totally. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Right on.
To focus in on Tilda Swinton specifically, so it's been acknowledged that she plays two identical twins in this film, identical genetically. In appearance, they're not quite. In terms of how they are costumed.
Their styling is very different.
Yes.
How they present themselves. And I'm intrigued by the fact that Tilda Swinton's dual role occupies relatively little screen time in this film. I mean, it's looming the whole time. You can feel it. And it's acknowledged at many points, even when you don't see both of the characters. But Lucy is the more forward-facing twin, while Nancy is spoken about for some time before she's seen in person. And she's almost like this entity before she becomes a corporeal presence. And so how do we interpret the contrast between screen time and character influence in Tilda's portrayals of Lucy and Nancy Mirando?
Well, I mean, first of all, like the movie opens with Lucy Mirando giving that kind of bonkers presentation, which this might be weird, but I was kind of reminded of Tilda's role in Michael Clayton.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, big time.
I'm glad
like-
we're shouting out her
Okay.
role in that, which she won an Oscar for, by the
Also
way.
Yeah.
about a nefarious agricultural corporation
Yes, agricultural,
doing
right.
terrible things
Right.
under the radar.
It seems like she's trying to acknowledge, though. She's like,
Yeah.
a lot of terrible things happen in this factory.
right.
Let's ignore that.
Yeah.
yeah. Anyway,
Right.
sorry.
I mean, she's just really good at playing those like wildly ambitious people that
Yeah.
eventually that's their downfall.
Right,
So obviously, like, that is the face of the company, and Nancy's sort of, like this background voice. Like, I think we first meet her, she's listening in on the phone, like during a board meeting or something.
Yeah.
And we
Yeah.
don't see her until much later. And I feel like that actually fits really well because she just seems like a human embodiment of like a faceless corporation.
Yeah,
when we do
totally.
finally meet her.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And she's like this threat that the movie has.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
It's like, we
it builds the tension so that when
We gotta
shit
unleash
finally
her.
goes
Yeah.
down and she steps in and she's like, "Hello, yes, I am here to clean up your mess."
Right.
And that also does feel very much like, all right, the real CEO is like coming down from, the
Yeah.
top floor or
Up
whatever.
high,
Well, it's
Yeah.
like Ned Beatty in Network.
Yeah.
Not a dual role, but like
Yeah.
famously, like maybe 5 minutes of screen time and nominated for Best Supporting Actor.
Although in that movie, he's more of a consultant,
Yeah,
but has the gravitas.
Yeah.
that we
They
are
bring him
describing.
out when shit goes down.
exactly.
Yep.
But since the Michael Clayton comparison has come up, that's what's interesting about that role as Karen Crowder. Not just as a character, but as a Tilda Swinton role, is that Karen Crowder is not a particularly colorful character. I mean, it's like she's utterly compelling to watch in that movie, but like Karen Crowder, you get the sense that as a character, like she is doing her job, and that Lucy is the opposite. She is colorful by nature. Something I found interesting very early, like I think I only really picked this up in that introductory sequence, but that made me think a little bit about another character from what would seem to be a pretty distant movie from this one that we have covered. But I noticed that Lucy is wearing braces.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you can hear a little bit of a lisp.
Oh, I know who you're going to bring up.
Yep, lisping Lisa, Josie,
Exactly.
Josie and the
This
Pussycats.
is in my notes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And maybe there's not any development of this in the script, but you get the sense
Strong Parker Posey vibes.
Parker Posey
Absolutely
vibes,
right.
and
Yeah.
well, also like to the point of that character too, lisping Lisa, that this is someone who has struggled with with this physical quality, and probably tried to it's something that one can accept, or in her case, it seems like she's tried to rise above it.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Shout out Josie and the Pussycat.
Yeah, and I think that it's also kind of implied that Lucy was probably in Nancy's shadow for a long time because Nancy was CEO before she was.
Mhm.
And we don't really get details on exactly what went down that made Nancy need to step away. It seemed like there was some sort of controversy that, yes, Lucy is
needed
then
a-
coming in to attempt to clean up.
Yeah.
But Nancy does feel like Lucy always feels a little out of her depth, even though she is running this company for, as far as we see, like a full decade.
Mhm.
So she must either be competent or have competent people around her. But Nancy, just when she finally does enter, have like this command of the situation that Lucy never really seems to have.
Mhm. That's a good point.
Maybe Nancy had been counsel at a company called U North, and then some scandal had broken
Mhm.
out that
Sure.
caused her to go into hiding for a little bit.
Yeah.
And
It's
I
all
mean-
possible.
And the fact that Giancarlo Esposito's character is constantly like, he's sneaking around. He's like, you were talking about the scene with the phone. It's like, I love the fact that it's like a glass table, and that's how it's revealed that he's called her. Is
Yeah.
that what we see under the glass, like who's on the phone, and
Right.
like, and he's like inviting her, or he's the one that tells Lucy like, oh, she's here. Of course she's here. And like, oh, these flowers are from her. Like, clearly he has chosen who to align himself with. He seems like the type of person who would align with whoever he thinks is the most powerful.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. Like kind of the shadow CEO.
Yeah.
Maybe not in like an actual position, but the person who's really running things.
She has the influence.
Right. Well, what's interesting about this as a dual role, we've talked about the buildup, but that there, maybe unlike any other dual role we're discussing in this episode cycle, that there's a very clear handoff in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
That after, so then
cigarettes.
Right.
Yeah.
Love
Which are
that.
different colors.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe it's more of a light off then. But, and this is more than halfway through the movie, but it's interesting that there should be a handoff like that, as we've acknowledged that. So like Lucy, she's seen her project blow up in her face, and she's trying to light a pink cigarette.
Yeah.
And then when she can't do it, then Nancy finally steps into the frame, literally, and has like this dark green one that she uses to light hers.
I mean, one of the things that I think about with the Lucy and Nancy characters here, it reminds me a little bit of when we had our conversation about Dead Ringers.
Yes.
And we were processing Jeremy Irons talking about energy points.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I feel like you can see that more explicitly done. Like, I think it's
Yeah.
a little bit more of a bombastic switch here. But in some ways, like Lucy and Nancy are actually, I think, a little closer energetically than they are like styled to be.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And that's something that I think is actually really cool about the performance. There's like a freneticism and this like desire for control
Yeah.
is in both of them, but that it looks a little bit different in kind of how they hold their face.
Totally.
And I think some of that's accentuated with the makeup.
Yeah, Lucy is very like wide-eyed and like very, very like tense.
Right.
And Nancy just feels like she's a little, she's definitely more
Terminator.
straightforward,
Yeah.
and like
Yeah.
her brow is a little more furrowed, so her eyes aren't popping out the way that Lucy's are.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, to the extent that the comparison holds up, that Lucy is the Beverly and Nancy is the Elliot.
Yes. There we
Yeah,
go.
and I mean, one in this scene we're talking about, Nancy also says to Lucy, "I'll pretend to be you in the press,"
There we go.
and that happens.
Yeah.
Very
Dead
mantle
Ringers.
twins right
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. And that's, when you think of hairstyle too and energy points, that as a Lucy that Tilda has these bangs
Mm-hmm.
that could almost be seen as like masking one of those distinct energy points. And but I noticed that, we talk about Lucy being wide-eyed, and the one scene where Nancy is wide-eyed is when Mija finally, she realizes how to play the game and offers to buy Okja with
Mhm.
that golden
Oh,
pig
yes.
that her grandfather has given her.
This
much
is when
earlier.
I'm crying, because I start
Oh,
crying.
it's tough.
I
That
start
is
crying
really
when
bleak.
she
Yeah.
shows the picture of her as a child and like baby Okja, like to
Mhm.
the guy who is killing the pigs.
Yeah.
And that is where I start bawling.
Yeah,
Yeah.
who seems to be just a guy doing his job and is not a sociopath,
Yeah.
unlike Nancy.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But I thought too, like just in the way that Tilda speaks as the two characters, that she's so much more vibrant as Lucy, and then as the transition from someone who maybe she's like, maybe Lucy is like some degree of sociopath, but not quite as much as Nancy. Like, you can really feel the detachment as Nancy, that there is no emotion when she's saying like, thanks, pleasure doing business with you at the end of all that.
You feel the threat of a sociopath with
Yeah.
Nancy in a way that you don't with Lucy.
Right.
Yeah.
And Lucy talks about, I think they use the word psychopath,
Yeah.
where
Right.
Lucy talks a lot about how her father was a psychopath and her sister is a psychopath. And once Nancy has kind of taken over, I think might be Paul Dano, it's someone in the ALF who says to her, like, you're a psychopath. Like, it kind of keeps coming back, this particular word, and how it's following their family and like kind of their legacy and their lineage. And something that I found interesting, which it might take me just a second to bring up, but so we talked about how this movie is co-written by Bong Joon-ho and John Ronson, and John Ronson has a book about psychopaths. So he has a book called The Psychopath Test, which came out in 2011, which kind of explores the concept of psychopathy. And I listened to some interviews with him where he speaks about, meeting a lot of psychopaths who some just kind of blend in with the rest of society, and some are like very upfront about like, hey, this is me. I've always known this about myself. My boss knows this about me. It makes me good at my job. And that feels like Nancy kind of to me.
Yeah, that's interesting that you bring up the job part of this.
Yeah.
Which is that some jobs you got to be a psychopath to do well, which is like nuts, but is kind of what this movie also is about.
It's often jobs like CEO of a multinational evil corporation.
And I got like politician vibes too.
Yeah,
like
totally.
actually when I first saw Nancy, I'm like, is she like a cousin in like the Bush family?
Yeah, totally.
It was like the hairstyle. I don't know.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
But but I mean, Okja, it's this very expansive movie, as we've acknowledged. Do we have any like little or more significant details that we want to shout out before we move to talk about Suspiria?
I just want to mention that I really loved how much this movie gave you with Mija and Okja.
Totally.
Before the Wilcox character comes in
Yeah.
and the cameras come in and he's like yelling at the guy, pan over this way.
Yeah.
I love that the movie took its time, gave you several vantage points of the relationship that this teenager and this super pig have been able to form. I just felt like it really set the movie off on this really wonderful foot because it does, as you said, whiplash before, I think with the tone of this, right? It is necessary though for the rest of the movie to work, for you to understand the emotional bond. I feel like a movie that isn't as interested in leaving you with the same payoffs is going to shortchange you in this moment.
Totally.
But it's like a good 15 to 20 minutes almost before we then get the intrusion of these characters like up at the top of the mountain. They're all like wheezing and they're like, where's the sparkling water and stuff, I want to point that out. I thought that was like very effective for this film.
Agree. And I think it not only establishes their bond, but it tells you more about what Okja is capable of. It establishes Okja as a character and not just an animal. I love when Mija is like hanging off the cliff. And the camera switches to Okja's POV as she's scanning like the cliffside to try to figure out, like she like scans and she sees the branch that she wraps the rope around to save Mija. That I think is such a genius moment of showing that this is a creature that's intelligent and is capable of problem solving and is capable of empathy and love.
Not just food.
And it's not just food. And so I think that just gives you it gives you this emotional resonance that you can hold on to, that you're like, well, you're not just like, oh, Mija wants to save her friend or whatever, but like Mija wants to save like a character that we have come to know.
Yeah. And that was, especially on the rewatch, one of my favorite scenes. I had forgotten that specific scene from the first time, but that, I think, just the sentiment of it combined with the way it's shot, just, A+, that scene. And then the other sequence in the first half of the movie that I, had that same reaction to was the chase going through the hills of Seoul. That, that Mija's made it to the city. There's a great establishing shot where she's on a staircase, the one red outfit amidst all these like much more muted colors,
which is such an anime thing to do. I think of putting your one important character like either in a certain color or like they have like a funky hairstyle and like everyone else is just in like blacks and grays and like other neutrals.
Very lost in translation too. Bill Murray.
But the like that, there's that great establishing shot, but then Mija finds her way into the Mirando building and eventually finds Okja. And then, that chase through the streets. I like seeing a scene where, the action hero protagonist does not have like the conventional body type of that sort of person, where this is not like, this is not like a hunk or something. This is a very ordinary looking teenage girl who gets to do these great stunts. And I mean, I don't assume that the actor who played Mija was doing all those stunts. That actor,
I would assume not.
That actor, by the way, is named An Seo-hun. Hope I pronounced that right or something close to it. But just that for that character to have those moments. There are also just some shots there of, she's on one street and then the truck is going on a street alongside. Very French Connection.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shout
but
out
she's the
Roisman.
one that's elevated.
Yeah.
Whereas in French Connection, normally it's like the train is elevated.
Yeah, and
obviously.
Gene Hackman's in the car on the ground. There were also just several moments throughout Okja where I felt like I'm watching a reverse Jurassic Park here.
Okay.
Because it's like, well, for one thing, this is a movie about rescuing an animal as opposed to cowering in fear from them, but also that you have like an intrusive scientist stealing someone's drink.
Yeah.
Where you have Dr. Wilcox drinking the soju early in the movie, and he clearly has a soju problem by the end.
Yeah, he does.
Also, a scene with a glass of water rumbling due to vibrations.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Definite shout out, by the way.
Yeah.
When I saw that, I got you.
Very salient reference to Jurassic Park. But this is a film that is able to criticize corporate greed in the name of rescuing animals, as opposed to saying this should not have been created. But genetic modification, still a key element of both stories.
Yeah.
So-
Totally.
Yeah.
I'm just picturing Mija with Okja and Alan Grant just on the Triceratops,
Yeah.
right? Rising up and down with breath.
Yeah.
R.I.P. Sam Neill.
Yes, rest in peace, Sam Neill.
I was just gonna say, like, I was very intrigued by the ALF. Like,
Yeah.
I liked all the members of that group, and I would watch like a whole other movie
Totally.
just
I
about
agree.
them.
Yeah.
I
agree.
love Paul Dano's character. I love that scene with him and like I think Stephen Ewan where he fires him from the group and
yeah.
talks about like translation being sacred.
And he's like beating the shit out of him while
Yeah.
also being like talking about their principles as an organization, which
Yes.
I think is very funny.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm with you on that.
I think they're so great. I like how Silver is said to be like basically starving himself because he's trying to leave the smallest footprint on the planet that he
Yeah.
can.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I feel that. I
Yeah.
so feel that.
And you've got Lily Collins as Red there,
Yeah.
named for her hair color. I sometimes feel like Lily Collins is a somewhat underserved actor,
Yeah.
that she's like better than some of the roles that she gets. But I feel like
You don't like Emily in Paris?
I haven't seen it,
I have
to be
neither.
fair. But
Not to be confused with Amelie.
also in Paris.
Also,
But yeah, it's, even in like a supporting role here, I feel like she's a nice, like, even keel member of the ALF. The one member who feels like there's no baggage to her.
Yeah. Silver and Blonde are a couple that is, I'd say heavily implied in the movie, but confirmed on the bonus features. And I watched a bonus feature that had a little bit from the costume designer, and they talk about how like Silver's balaclava, his face hole is shaped like a heart.
I love that.
because they're in love, which I think is so cute because it's not something you notice like at all.
Sure.
Yeah,
I thought that's adorable.
absolutely.
Shout out to special features, by the way.
Totally.
Yeah.
What would we do without them?
Yes.
For sure. I also just want to say that I wish I had the name in front of me. I'm going to try to find it, but they actually do have like an actual actor doing the voice of Okja. Or like doing some voices of Okja that they then like modify. And then she has a cameo in the movie, like when they're running through the mall, they're like crashing through the mall,
Oh.
and she's in the wheelchair.
Oh, no way.
Like
wow.
where she just lets out this like crazy scream because Okja's just like barreling right towards her, and it's like them having to swerve to
Dual
avoid
roles,
her. Yeah, that basically then causes them to nearly be caught. So I think this is Lee Jong-un, I believe. And this is the first time they work together. Obviously, they do come back.
I looking at her face now. I think she's the housekeeper.
She's the housekeeper.
in
Yeah.
Parasite.
Yeah.
Also, quick shout out to Choi Woo-shik, who plays the truck driver for the Mirando Corporation and is the son in Parasite.
Yeah, I was like, oh, I'm pretty sure that's the son, but I forgot to look it up to confirm it. I like how he ends up working with a lot of these actors again in like what becomes maybe his most successful movie.
Yeah. Speaking of which, this actor, I believe, did not make it to Parasite, but the actor who plays the grandfather, Mija's grandfather, whose name is Byun Hee Bong, passed away in 2023. Rest in peace. But he was someone that Bong Joon-ho worked with repeatedly, as like he was I think a television actor in South Korea, and as early as Barking Dogs Never Bite, Bong Joon-ho knew that he wanted him in a role, and I think that the actor himself, like he didn't really assume that he would have such a place in these esteemed films, but he was very grateful for it. There's a great bonus feature on the Criterion Disc, an interview conducted with Byun Hee-bong in 2022. But he also appeared in Memories of Murder, The Host, and then in Okja.
He is one of my favorite line readings, so to speak, is when Will Cox and his crew come up and they're like, "What did you do for him?" He's just like, "We just let him run around."
I love that.
I just love like the energy. He was wonderful.
And that's why you should buy pasture-raised eggs, because they are much healthier for you because the chickens get to run around, just like Okja. I mean, Sarah said when we first started talking about this movie, and I agree, this movie is very bleak and kind of I'd say the last act in particular. And I think that something that's genius about this movie is the fact that, if you're only looking at the characters that we followed, this has a happy ending. They're reunited. They return home. They have like a new, like little super pig to run around. They've saved one of them, but we have seen the factory. Like we have seen the thousands, if not millions of other creatures that are being killed and, processed into meat. Again, I said I was not going to get preachy and I'm not, but all of the factory farming stuff, not even just from like an animal rights perspective, but just from like a climate change perspective. Like there's
that too. Yeah.
There's so much that this movie leaves you with.
Yeah, has on its mind.
Mm-hmm.
I also feel like the ending is kind of a sweet one from a perspective of like, what can you do?
Yeah.
What can any individual person do when you're up against so many what seem like behemoths, like we're, drops in a bucket, so to speak.
For sure.
I think that what this movie kind of advocates for in some way is like, find the thing that you really care about, stand up for it, and find individual happiness. Like, I think that's kind of where this movie leaves you with.
Mm-hmm.
There are little ways that you can carve out and get your victories.
Yeah.
And I kind of like that. I feel like this is a world that is going to hell in a handbasket. And so in some ways, I agree with you. Bleak, there's a lot in this movie that does feel bleak, but that almost feels slightly optimistic in some ways. I read it that way.
Yeah. I mean, I think I agree with you on that. And I also think there's this sort of like, you have to play the game, which is a little cynical too, right?
Totally.
Because Mija has to basically bribe her way out
exactly,
to rescue Okja.
Mm-hmm.
But it's that, and also grabbing the joy where you can, even in a very small amount.
No, that's a good point though. Playing the game.
Well, very quick shout out before we move to Suspiria, the fact that Mija, when her grandfather says that you can't afford to go to Seoul or whatever the message is, that she just breaks a piggy bank.
Yeah. Boom.
And the fact that when Okja is running through the mall, that there is, in the midst of all this, there is someone who wanders into the picture wearing a pink sweater that says animal mask and a pig mask, and is then taking a selfie style video running in front of Okja as that rampage is happening. Yeah. Just nice little touches.
A lot of pig imagery in this for sure. There's like all the people holding balloons at the super pig reveal are like all kind of dressed as pigs.
Yes,
also.
Not to be confused with the cover of the Pink Floyd album Animals.
Yeah, exactly. All right, are we ready to move on to our final movie?
Yes. And this film, Suspiria, we've acknowledged it, that it's a remake of a film from 1977. But, even so, this title might give you hints of a few other things, and it's not to be confused with Suspicion, Alfred Hitchcock's film from 1941, which won Joan Fontaine an Oscar, the only Oscar won for a Hitchcock film, acting Oscar.
There we go. Interesting. Yeah. I also would say that this is not to be confused with the film Disturbia. Does anybody remember that one?
Good one, yeah. I mean, I haven't seen the movie. I can't attest to it being a good one, but good poll.
I think I saw that in theaters. I don't remember it being good.
Yeah, I don't think it's actually very good. But we were talking about Alfred Hitchcock. This is sort of like a millennial version of Rear Window.
Yeah.
Starring Shia LaBeouf.
Actual cannibal.
Yeah. David Morse, The Matrix's Carrie Ann Moss. I have not actually seen this movie,
I
but
do
I've
not
not heard good
remember
things.
it being good, but I like that you did this comparison because also Shia LaBeouf, famously for many years, was in a relationship with Mia Goth
Oh.
in this movie.
Right.
Yeah, was being the operative word.
Was being the operative word.
Yeah.
I would also like to say that Suspiria, despite it being, a movie about women and the desperate things that they will go through in order to survive in our society, not to be confused with The Substance.
Oh.
Yeah, I was thinking of that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some body horror.
Yeah, the body horror element
Running
of it
through
as
this
well.
one. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I might also add, not to be confused with breathless.
Yeah.
Suspiria seems to be kind of a Latin term for breaths or sighs.
Yeah, they mentioned
yeah.
I
that.
love
Yeah.
the direction you're going with this. Sarah. Thank you.
Yeah.
We're like digging a little deeper.
Just a
I love
little.
this. This is great.
So then, Emilio, what is Suspiria about?
Yes. What is it about? Well, it's 1977, and we meet a young American dancer named Susie Banyan making her way all the way from Ohio to West Berlin to study dance at the prestigious Marcos Dance Academy. She makes a great initial impression with the school's brass, including top dog Madame Blanc, who Susie admits to have admired from afar. Susie's got the skills to rise through the ranks quickly there and earns a prime spot in the company, one where Madame Blanc is able to work closely with her and tailor choreography to her strengths. It's an awesome opportunity for this aspiring artist, if not for the fact that shit is dark and drab and weird as hell at Marcos. It rains all the time, like all the time. The all-female staff is secretive and creepy and speak in German with one another, very code-oriented here. There have been a few notable disappearances too, one of which sparks the interest and attention of an aging psychiatrist named Dr. Klemperer, whose once patient Patricia is among the disappeared, and shortly before going missing, made a desperate appeal to him to investigate the dance academy. As he does, Susie starts to have some pretty intense dreams, and talk amongst the freaky staff is that Susie is a perfect addition, and for more than just dancing at the company. Will Susie or Dr. Klemperer, or both, discover the true nature of Marcos Dance Academy before their lives are in danger? Or might there be even more twists and turns to this story?
Twists and turns and pirouettes?
Yes.
Oh.
Love it. All of that. And then some.
Definitely.
Yeah. This is my first time seeing this. I had seen the original. Man, this movie is freaking dark, and not the subject matter. I'm talking like visually. I
Yeah,
found this
definitely
there's
visually dark.
Yeah.
so little light coming through this movie.
Well,
like,
it is, as you said, very cloudy.
Yeah,
Berlin
right.
in winter.
Exact. That too. Yes. Yeah. I feel like the Dario Argento original makes more attempts to make it feel like a supernatural slasher film.
Yeah.
And this one is like just supernatural and
Yeah.
kind of freaky and stuff.
Yeah.
But
It's like supernatural body horror. It's like it takes
yeah.
the slasher stuff and just makes it like much like more visceral.
yes.
and-
Yeah.
100%.
Felt
yeah.
like, I mean, it's like clearly very reverential to the source material, particularly with certain plot movements. But I felt more like it was, if you're going to make a tonal comparison here, it's almost like there were points in this where, I feel like Luca Guadagnino took the source material and instead of the Dario Argento tone, it's more like David Lynch fused with Takashi Miike. Like there are moments in this that made me think of Audition.
Yeah,
Right.
there's
Yeah.
definitely Miike in this, I can see.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I dug where this movie went. Like the psychiatrist plotline, obviously something we're going to talk a little bit about here. Kind of a footnote in the original, kind
Yeah.
of just something to
Yeah.
help the Susie character start to maybe realize some of the danger that she's in, kind of sets up the final showdown. Definitely not that. It's like very central to this film.
Yeah.
That is explored more. Obviously, love the opportunity to see more Tilda in
Yeah.
this.
Well,
So
you,
there we go.
you like kind of see her.
Yeah.
She's
Well, it's-
Yeah.
under there somewhere.
She's in there. Yeah. She's showing up and showing
Down there
out in
somewhere.
there.
Let me take another look.
Yeah, exactly.
It's been kind of a gradual path of discovery for me because I saw this when it came out and I obviously knew her as Madame Blanc. I did
Right.
not know she was playing the other characters until after I'd seen it. And
Yeah.
even then, just Dr. Klemperer. It wasn't until being invited to this podcast that I realized she also played Helena Marcos.
Yeah.
And I've seen this movie like 4 times.
Okay.
So
And
Okay.
it's funny because in the credits of the film, they don't credit her as Dr. Klemperer, so
Exactly.
I can see
Yeah.
why that would be confusing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even like I'm watching the whole movie or rewatching the whole movie, being like, well, yes, this is Tilda. And then the credits come on, and I'm like, wait, was it?
Yeah,
They're
I-
lying to me.
I had the same feeling, but yeah, like, she's there right there in the first scene
Yeah.
of the movie. In that, having that session with Chloe Moretz's character, Patricia. And as soon as I see this character, like clearly someone in old person makeup, I was, before I could even make out the facial features, I was like, it's Tilda, isn't it?
Yeah. Totally.
And I was happy to be right, but I did have that moment of anxiety watching the credits too and seeing that she was credited under the pseudonym of Lutz Ebersdorf. And I had a moment of doubt there, and then quickly went on the Wikipedia page and see there's a whole section devoted to this name, and I'm like, okay, it was a pseudonym.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Roderick James.
Yeah, exactly.
And the
yeah,
Coen
it's
brothers.
very Roderick James.
Yeah. Yeah.
it's not like an anagram of Tilda Swinton.
I'm wondering
Ooh, I
how
would've
they
liked
came up
that.
with
That would
this
have been
name.
cool.
Yeah. I'd be down for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's well, so Madeline, you said that you had seen this before.
I had seen this before. I don't remember exactly. I want to say, hey, that this was a COVID watch for me.
Mhm.
Dougie and I were trying to discuss when we saw this movie because he reminded me that this movie came out in the second half of 2018. We moved to New York in the summer of 2018, and I remember going to Orbit DVD. Shout out Orbit DVD
North
for
Carolina.
all your DVD and Blu-ray needs. They also ship. I remember going to Orbit DVD because I was still living there and could do their rentals, which is so awesome. And Dougie had a conversation with, I think it's the owner or whoever was working there at the time. Like they were so excited about this new Suspiria because I think we were there to rent the original Suspiria.
Mhm.
And they were talking about like, oh, you see there's going to be this like kind of remake or reimagining. But then I don't think we saw it in theaters for some reason. Probably just like we had just moved to New York. Things were crazy. We never really got to it. I don't know exactly. So I think we watched this during COVID. I have to say though, I feel kind of bad. I think I fell asleep when I watched this. It's like such an overwhelming.
No, it is. Yeah, I watched this one in like 6 parts.
Yeah.
And it was, I famously don't watch movies all the way through.
it's divided
It
into
is in-
6
it is in
It's a
chapters.
great
Yeah.
movie for
It
that.
does.
Yeah, although I didn't divide it up that way. I think I came back. I dead ringered a little bit of this. And
Fair enough.
watched the first part of it, I think 3 times. And then,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did see this when it came out, and I have kind of a weird anecdote about it. So it was the night before I had this really big job interview, actually for the job I have now, and I saw the film. It just deeply unsettled me and disturbed me, and I remember feeling super anxious that I wasn't going to sleep. And I had this huge interview the next day, and I think my sleep was kind of impacted, but.
But it all worked out.
But
All
it
was
worked
well.
out. I was going to say, maybe it was just what you needed.
Yes, exactly.
It put you in like a heightened state, and you were like, maybe a little more ready to kill the interview.
It could be.
Yeah.
But yeah, it had a profound effect on me. I just
Not just
yeah.
in terms of employment.
Right.
Yeah.
But that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you said you've revisited this a lot since then.
I have. Yeah. I mean, I love this movie. I would say I love it the more times I've seen it. I love the atmosphere. I do love the original as well. I will say I've seen that many times. But I almost feel like this is just like a different interpretation of the story as opposed to like a true remake.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
I mean, both in tone and actual, plots in some respects, and even like the color palette, of course.
Definitely.
Tilda Swinton, in interviews for this movie, said that she and Luca Guadagnino referred to it as a cover, like the way you would use
I
like a
like-
song
I
or
like
something.
Yeah, that's
This is
great.
like their cover version of this.
Yeah. So watching Suspiria for this recording, it was a first time watch for me, but I had been curious about it for a long time. I was aware of it when it came out in 2018. And well, the timing of that is interesting for a few reasons. And I'm glad, Madeline, that you mentioned that you saw the original movie from Orbit DVD around that time, because I also saw the original Suspiria around that time.
Oh, cool.
In late August of 2018. It showed at the IFC Center for a little bit. I was between my junior and senior years of college at the time. And then I was hanging out with the oft mentioned my cousin Sylvie one night in the end of August 2018. And we saw like, so this is playing at IFC, want to go see it? We did. And, that's one of those movies that's become, I think, a very, it's maybe not the one we mention the most often, but it's always a fond recollection whenever we do talk about it.
Yeah.
And to be clear, I'm with you, Sarah. I think that the original Suspiria is in its own way a perfect movie. You really have to consider these movies as products of their time, of their artists, and, just as products of different intentions.
Totally.
But I think, I haven't seen a lot of Giallo films. Giallo, that's the style that Dario Argento is most commonly associated with, of Italian horror. But I've always imagined Suspiria, the original Suspiria, to be like the Giallo film. It's like the film that best exemplifies that style, with all of its reds and blues and greens, and Jessica Harper and Udo Kier in that role that is expanded upon as in one of Tilda's roles.
My Orbit DVD drop here is going to be that when I was there, I submitted myself to the taste of the people working there. I said, you guys find me a movie. I trust you all.
Yeah, I think that's a great move.
And the movie that they chose for me, they said, this is the Giallo movie, is Deep Red.
I was just going to talk about that.
Yeah.
I love Deep
Me
Red.
too.
Yeah.
I'm so glad. It was a great choice on their part. I had not seen it before that moment. Not to put that choice down, just saying I think right up there with it, with the original Suspiria.
I need to see it, that and The Cat o' Nine Tails, Bird with the Crystal Plumage, all the
That's
other
a great one.
Tenebrae, all the other great Dario Argento films. I need to fill in some gaps. But coming to Suspiria from 2018, so I hadn't seen this. I've seen a lot of the other recent Luca Guadagnino films. I had seen Call Me by Your Name when it came out. Everything from Bones and All onward I've seen too. I'm generally a fan. I like his work a lot, but I hadn't made it to this. It came out when I was a senior in college. I think I was probably just busy with work and didn't prioritize it. But coming to it now, so we're discussing a really fascinating bunch of movies for this episode, but I think this was my favorite.
I mean, it's a wild movie.
It's wild in just the ways that I like.
Yeah.
Like
fair enough.
Like I said something earlier about it having a few Lynchian details, and to be clear, it's not like David Lynch could have, this is exactly what he would have envisioned, but it's clearly a movie made with that sensibility on the mind.
Yeah.
The surrealism, the reverence to the original film, also the fearlessness of the fresh swings that this film takes. The strength of the performances, the difference in the color palette. Also, I just have I think that a lot of people have weird soft spots for fraught eras of history, but Divided Berlin.
I was just say Possession.
Yeah.
Well,
there's definitely
and Hedwig we recently covered.
Yeah. There's a lot about this movie that reminds me of Possession, but Possession, Hedwig, The Lives of Others. There's something
I love The Lives of Others. Holy shit.
I'm really fascinated by that particular sector, a very intentional term there, of history. It's a fraught time, but it's, you're going to tell me some stories about Divided Berlin, I will eat them right up.
Yeah. Well, you were talking about the Lynchian aspect of this, and I totally agree. And, I don't want to always go to the easy, this movie feels Lynchian. But I do think that this movie has a tone that is similar in some ways to movies of Lynch, but more specifically, the light, kind of mass that we see in a lot of Susie's dreams, but then at one point it leads her down to where the ritual is taking place. It's that it's so Twin Peaks Return. It's so Dougie, not my partner.
Mr. Jackpots. Yeah.
Mr. Jackpots quoted.
Yeah, that is just what I was thinking of.
Yeah.
Yeah, that and some of those montages where you see characters before you kind of know who they are. The first appearance of Jessica Harper's cameo in this movie. It's the brevity and the surrealness of that too. That felt pretty Lynchian to me as well.
Yeah.
I ate this one right up. 2 hours and 32 minutes. I was captivated all the way through.
So in interviews that Tilda Swinton gave while promoting this movie, she mentioned that the three characters she played, that's Madame Blanc, Mother Marcos, and Dr. Klemperer, they're all meant to be connected. And she said, rather pretentiously, in a somewhat joking fashion. She said that those three characters involve the superego, the ego, and the id. So they're all kind of meant to be these kind of connected, almost like a triangle of characters. So this movie is really orbiting what's happening with the three of them. And I wanted to ask you all how we felt we saw this play out in their characters, and if we saw anything in her acting that maybe suggests that she's slotting them into those types of molds.
This is not to be confused with Triangle of Sadness.
No, that's true.
That's true.
Yeah. Triangle of like deeply disturbing supernatural goings on.
Phenomenon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I had to kind of refresh my psychology 101.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Went to that
notebook.
Wikipedia page. For
Yeah.
sure.
But yeah, I mean, if we're starting with the id, like I feel like that is Helena Marcos.
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
Like
Totally.
her physical
Yeah.
embodiment, like she's literally absorbed body parts of the women and girls that they have
Yeah.
sacrificed.
Yeah.
Terrifying.
So yeah, her overwhelming desire to remain leader of the coven, to remain immortal, like
Yeah.
that is her only aim.
Yeah.
That is what the other thing that reminds me of The Substance.
Oh,
Yeah.
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 Mhm.
Yeah, it made me think a lot of, what, I mean, I don't want to spoil it, but, the final form
Right.
of the
Yeah.
character in that
Yeah.
movie.
For sure.
That was a movie that you turned me on to, by the way, Sarah.
The
Yeah.
substance.
Yes. You were like, you got to see this.
Oh yeah.
And I need to talk to you about the last 20 minutes of this.
And the last 20 minutes of Suspiria are like, similar escalation, if you ask
Yeah,
me.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then to counteract Elena Marcos as clearly the id, then Dr. Klemperer is so clearly the superego.
It feels like that character in particular is always trying to kind of keep to like the social mores, the rules, like, I think there was that backstory of him and his wife during World War II
Yeah.
where he should have evacuated them like
Right.
years before, and
Yeah.
then she was deported. It was too late. And so that really kind of embodied the superego for me, was this kind of desperate clinging to normalcy and the immense guilt that he continued to feel
Right.
for
Yeah.
like decades.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because
Yeah.
I think that guilt then leads him into this life where, I mean, we don't really know where his profession comes in, like how long he's been in this profession, but clearly he's somebody that is kind of desperate to help someone.
Yeah, totally.
Like kind of it because he couldn't save his wife.
Mhm. Yeah.
I think that's so much of his motivation to help Patricia when she goes missing is like he's been through this before, somebody that he cared about, obviously to a different extent, going missing and him failing to save her. Like he's trying to kind of course correct with Patricia, but at first all he really knows how to do is like, well, I guess I'll go to the police. Like
Right.
and it's over time he has to discover that like they're not equipped to
Right.
deal with this. He
No,
has to kind of
he's
go
gotta go out
outside
himself.
of like the structure that he would normally turn to.
Yeah.
I love that.
And then that leaves Madame Blanc as the ego. And it's kind of an interesting, if you're watching this movie not knowing where it's going to end up, and that admittedly having seen the original Suspiria, I knew that like, we have to see like the Helena Marcos at the core of this at some point. So I had a hint that this was gonna that this character was gonna show up, and I had a feeling that it's gonna be Tilda too, isn't
Yeah.
it? Even she's unrecognizable in that makeup in the final coven scene, but still, I just thought like, come on, like I see what this movie's going for.
Yeah.
But then, like, Madame Blanc is in this interesting middle ground where I feel like you sense the sinister side of her throughout the movie at times, very close in a very like vivid way. But I feel like the way that Tilda plays that character, it's actually like interestingly muted, I found.
Yeah.
Where it's she's not like a yeller, but also not like the most subdued character. It really does feel like a middle ground between the excess of Elena Marcos and the reservedness, but still with there's a sentiment breaking through with Dr. Klemperer.
Yeah.
I want to go off of the exact phrase that you just said, middle ground,
Mm-hmm.
because from another interview that I heard Tilda Swinton give while promoting this film, she also talked about different levels that these three characters are apparently occupying, that there's an underground, there's an on the ground, and in the air.
Mhm.
And I thought it was kind of interesting that she was also thinking about levels like that when
Yeah.
she's thinking about the performance. Obviously, Helena Marcos, underground.
like even literally at
Yes.
times.
Absolutely.
Like they put her in the basement.
Right,
Right.
totally. And then you very aptly use the term middle ground. We definitely feel that for Madame Blanc, that she's kind of in this in between. She's also like the face of this dance school in
Yeah.
many ways. So there's like a groundedness that has to come from that character. But then I love the idea of the psychiatrist sort of being the air, that there's this abstraction
Yeah.
that this character sort of lives in, that it's places in the mind that is so linked to their profession,
Yeah.
and that there
Mhm.
is this need for that character to actually find their footing
Yeah.
in order to make something happen.
And there's a lot of talk in the movie about these different levels, because one of the thing that Madame Blanc is constantly working with Susie on are like her jumps, and she has a lot of language
Right
about
on.
like, oh well, what's important is not like how high you're getting. It's not the height that matters.
It's the distance from the ground.
It's the
yeah.
distance from the ground, and
Yeah.
it's like you're using that as like a point of contact
Right.
for elevation rather
Right.
than just trying to get as high as possible.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that
Mhm.
too.
And there's that great scene where Madame Blanc is working with Susie individually, and she's asking her like, "What part of this school do you want to be?" And she mentions like several different parts of the body before Susie very confidently says, "I want to be the hands of this school."
Right on.
Mhm.
And that's more of a revelation for Susie's character, but it is still like a similar moment where there's almost like a little game recognized game going on there,
Totally.
Yeah.
Mm.
where like
She gets right up on her. She like puts
Yeah.
her hands like right on
Yeah.
her chest. Yeah.
and Susie gives an answer that Madame Blanc has not already said.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like interesting the way that this in terms of like who's the main character of this movie, that it feels like it never changes hands with quite the directness that you see like in Okja, that we go from Lucy to Nancy being the dominant Tilda performance in that movie. We never there are a few different people you could call the main character of Suspiria, this version, and it feels like it's there are maybe individual chapters that are more aligned with one than the other, but it's like never fully taking it away from anyone else. And there are
Yeah.
points where Dr. Klemperer, really feels like the main character, maybe the most consistent through line of the story, that Suspiria begins and ends with things relating to Dr. Klemperer. But then Susie Bannion's the main character in the original. She's a definitive presence as played by Dakota Johnson in this version. And then
I do think much of what's happening is revolving around her, because it's like
Exactly.
it's her presence that is shifting what is happening at the company. Like she
Yeah.
is changing things for them.
right, and that Dr. Klemperer has this more like detective presence throughout,
And similar to the detective presence, like I think that
Audience proxy too. Yeah.
Yeah, to an extent. Yeah, for sure. But I think that Mia Goth's character of Sarah is
Mhm.
like incredibly
Oh,
central
Yeah.
to this
Mhm.
movie.
She's
and
it's
I-
brutal what
I-
happens with her.
it
Oh,
really
yeah.
isn't. I think she's one of my favorite performances in this, like Tilda,
Me too.
Tilda
Mhm.
aside, because
Mhm.
Tilda's phenomenal and is having to do so much. But just as far as actors that are not Tilda Swinton, I think Mia Goth is my favorite performance in this, because I think she's so affecting. You have so much empathy for Sarah as a character.
Yeah.
I think that I was surprised at how often we are just with her. Like
Yeah.
when she is like after she is met with Dr. Klemperer, and he kind of plants the seed. Like she's like, no, none of this is happening. I am leaving. But he plants the seed in her mind. He says something about the hidden rooms. She's the one that then has she goes on this journey
Mhm.
going through the school. Like she finds the fake wall mirror,
Right.
and she finds the scary hooks, the room
Yeah,
of
the meat hooks or whatever. Yeah.
the room of hooks and
Yeah.
other scary
Yeah.
items, and she is hearing what's happening with the faculty where the one woman is stabbing herself in the neck. It's like all of that we're learning we're not learning it with her, like some of this we've already discovered, but we're moving through the space with Sarah. And then she then is the one to go back down
Mhm.
to attempt to rescue Patricia. So
Mhm.
I was surprised at how often we just like hang with Sarah.
Me too. And well, I as far as I understand that this role was like a big moment of arrival for Mia Goth.
Mm-hmm.
That like, this is where like a lot of people got clued into the fact that this is a really interesting new actress. I mean, the first thing I saw her in was High Life, a Claire Denis movie that came out a year later. But then, like, when you consider her roles, maybe that she's best known for now in the X trilogy and X Pearl and Maxine, or in Infinity Pool, those like are mostly roles that I come away from thinking like, wow, this is incredible what she's doing, but is she okay?
Yeah.
She's a great horror actor.
She is, but those are like, she plays some much more. I mean, in Pearl, just straight up a psychopathic character there. Like, talking of psychopaths again, that, it's those, there are some very particular shades to those roles, and it feels like she's the opposite as Sarah in this.
Yeah, she's like, I think as an actor, like an evolved, more modern version of a scream queen. She's very commanding of this horror genre, but in ways that largely like defy these expectations that we've put on like leading women in many horror movies.
Yeah.
I like that.
I mean, her scream in this was blood curdling.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and this is despite being very saliently a scary movie, this is not a movie that has the typical tone of a horror movie.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's why it scares the shit out of me.
Yeah.
Because I mean, a typical horror movie, I'd say I generally don't find all that scary, but like this movie, I genuinely, like you were talking about the first time you saw this and being like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to sleep. Like this, I think this movie is very effective.
Like that dance studio scene with Olga.
With Olga.
Like seeing that in the theater,
Terrifying.
like everyone around me was like covering their face. Like it is excruciating.
Yeah. Even watching that on your couch is like it's so visceral.
Yeah.
And the amount of compound fractures.
Exactly. Like the sound design in that scene is horrifying.
Yeah. And the flipping.
Yeah.
Like ragdoll flipping that happens.
And we haven't talked about Tom York's score.
I love it.
Come on.
In this movie, but I think that it's I mean, you could choose many moments from this movie where the score is effective, but I do think the Olga scene, it's like maybe the most effective because it's the Volk score that you hear a lot because they're constantly doing this piece. But I do think it's got this very repetitive, like ostinato kind of nature to it, and I think that adds to the tension of what we're seeing happen to Olga.
Yeah. And the original Suspiria has a very famous score by the band Goblin, with with this motif, which to me is like on par with the motif from House, released in the same year.
Yeah.
The which you don't really hear in Tom York's score, but there was the one moment where I thought, is there a potential illusion? I can't name the exact piece, but I think it's actually right after that big dance sequence that there's a piece that plays where you can hear there's kind of a triplet drive to it, like a and there's a triplet drive to the original Goblin motif too. So I wondered if there, to the extent that there may be illusions, is this where that exists?
Yeah. I love that we're shouting out all these notable moments here.
Yeah.
I want to lean into one. We already talked about the room full of mirrors. Absolutely terrifying. Obviously, all the stuff happening with Olga is horrific. I also just want to shout out Olga's removal from that room.
Yeah.
Has probably one of the craziest shots. It is the one where you see the reflection of blood on the walls, but then you see the trail end in like darkness, and then you see the door close, and then it links all the blood trail.
Insane.
That's gonna stay with me for a while.
Yeah.
Just like a horror visual. That's A+ work right there.
Yeah.
I gotta say, like, I mean, the only Luca G movie I'd seen before this was Call Me by Your Name. I had no idea his like prowess as a horror director.
Yeah.
Like, I want to see more.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously Bones and All, which is I also really love.
Yeah.
But like, I want more.
Well, that the way that Olga moves around, that's what made me think of Audition. It just made me think of like the bag in that movie.
Oh, totally. Ugh. Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of movement, so obviously the dancing in this movie, when I was first watching it, I'm like, this is some weird shit like that they're having him do. It felt so different than I think what traditional ballet form looks like. Obviously, it has a point that we find out later in the film. But before that point happened, I was immediately thinking back on our conversation about Frances Ha.
Yeah.
And the kind of choreography that we see utilized so much in that film, just the amount of like falling and catching yourself or trying to control your fall is so much a part of that film that also links so thematically to the idea of moving through your 20s. And I just couldn't help but wonder myself too if Frances is actually orchestrating some ritualized killings.
Well,
you know, if there's a really dark undertone to Frances Ha. That movie ends on such a nice note, but I'm like, maybe there's something brewing.
Chopped and screwed remix of Modern Love, maybe.
Could be, yeah.
I want to take a moment to, you know, we've praised a bunch of performances in this movie already. I don't know where you all land with this. I like Dakota Johnson a lot in this movie too.
I think that she is very effective in this. I think that generally I'm like could go either way on Dakota Johnson. I actually have not seen her in that much, but I think that this is what she's most effective at from everything that I've seen her in.
Yeah, and having seen maybe not everything, but a few things that she's in, where, you know, like movies of a very different tone, like Materialists is the other one that comes straight to mind. I do think in a different way she's doing what she's really good at there too.
I'm gonna zag a little bit on this. I felt like she was serviceable.
Okay.
She's one of the things that, as I was watching it, like it was a little bit of a barrier to enter and stay in the world for me.
Interesting.
Yeah. And obviously there's a big reveal later about the true nature of her character. I don't know. Maybe if I go back and see it, I'll feel differently.
I mean, I understand that to an extent. I think I feel that way in other things that I've seen Dakota Johnson in.
Yeah, I felt that way about the Materialists too.
I think it fits in this context for me personally.
Yeah.
So in our last episode, our guest Marquita shouted out that great split diopter shot in Us. And this is another movie that has like a really great split diopter shot.
It does. It's very brief, but
it's very brief. It's like blink and you miss it.
It's like first 20 minutes or so.
No, it's not quite that early, but it's like,
isn't it with? It's with Madame Blanc.
It's with Madame Blanc
Susie,
and
right?
Susie, like in her office. I think it's probably in the first 40 minutes,
right?
But yeah, it's so brief. But I love that Luca was like,
got thrown in there. Yeah,
right
yeah.
on in.
It's such a visually arresting thing because it's not the way our eyes actually perceive the world.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, one of the reasons why it jumps out so strongly anytime you see it.
Yeah.
And it's very appropriate for a film like this.
Right. But also to say another thing about Dakota Johnson and by extension Tilda Swinton, that Dakota Johnson had worked with Luca Guadagnino before
in a bigger splash,
which I still have yet to see. And Tilda had worked together with Luca as well. That I think she's in a bigger splash too.
She is, yeah.
And I Am Love. And it's maybe a good broad point to make about Tilda by way of these connections. It's the fact that she must be delightful to work with on sets because she's a regular with many different directors.
Yeah.
That, I think it's an easy fact to come by, but, beginning of her career, that she's a regular with Derek Jarman. Those are some films I still need to see.
Same. That was a big revelation for me.
Yeah.
While researching for our conversation.
Yeah. Derek Jarman, but then later on, like Wes Anderson has worked with her many times. Luca Guadagnino, the Coen brothers in Burn After Reading and Hail Caesar. Jim Jarmusch, another important one. It's almost like it's tough for me in my head to retain her filmography just because of all the different places where not only does she fit, but she's like so woven into the fabric of how these directors work that I don't even think twice about her being there. It's like with certain Wes Anderson movies, it's just kind of like if it's more jarring if there's not Tilda. And because there are so many characters, it takes a second to notice.
Cool. And I just wanted to use this opportunity while we're wrapping up to talk about other movies quickly where Tilda has played dual roles, because we have not even talked about all of the ones that she's done. So in addition to all the ones we've discussed tonight, including the two we very briefly discussed, which was Hail Caesar and Technolust, she also plays two roles in The Eternal Daughter. She plays two roles in Del Toro's Pinocchio.
Nice.
And then she plays 2 roles in The Room Next Door, which I have not seen, but Julian, I think you have.
I have seen it. Honestly, like I had to be reminded of it, but now that you mentioned it, I'm like, oh yeah, right. That is a pretty important element in that movie. But another director she's worked with more than once, Pedro Almodovar. I don't know what else to say as much as just, like the proof is in the pudding that like, not only is she great in these multiple roles, but multiple directors know that about her.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
In all the cases where she does this, it feels not only fun, but natural to the movie.
Totally. We're wrapping up our Twins and Doppelgängers cycle. And towards the end of Orlando, the book by Virginia Woolf, it talks about how Orlando really has a lot of these personalities inside themselves. And so I'm going to once again read from Orlando by Virginia Woolf. For if there are at a venture 76 different times all ticking in the mind at once, how many different people are there not, heaven help us, all having lodgment at one time or another in the human spirit? And I think that kind of does a decent job of wrapping up this cycle of twins and doppelgangers. And that sometimes they're twins, they're very distinctly different spirits. Sometimes in Suspiria, these people are somewhat connected. I think it's been a really interesting cycle in that sense.
3 bodies, 3 minds, 1 soul.
Exactly.
Great. A tagline that maybe wasn't super appropriate for Dead Ringers, but might be more appropriate now.
That 1 soul will be the actor playing these characters.
There we go.
Yeah.
And on that note, Unlikely Shared Universe.
It is time.
Let's do it.
Mine is a very minor character, a blink and you miss it character. But as soon as I saw her, I said, that woman has been in something else that I love. So once Orlando returns to England as a woman, she is ecstatic to be invited to the party of a countess who famously arranges gatherings of artists and intellectuals. To Orlando's dismay, this particular party seems focused more on gout and its ability to move from one leg to another. Although the attendees of this party don't impress the Lady Orlando, she's still taken with the countess, and perhaps they go on to spend some additional time in each other's company. This close interaction of the 2 women causes some of Orlando's magic to rub off on the countess, and her lifespan is somewhat extended.
Okay, somewhat extended.
Eventually growing bored with London society, she moves to Paris, but soon squanders her riches and decides to make money from her wiles. She's quite good at this, but she finds that she has an even better sense for business. After recruiting other women in need of some dough and a better place to stay, our countess opens a brothel and begins going by the name of Madame Swiney. Sometime in the late Victorian era, a fascinating young woman arrives on her doorstep, ecstatic to find that she is able to make money from sex, one of her most beloved passions. Madame Swiney is drawn to this young woman, seeing some of the naivete from her own youth, and employs the woman at her brothel. Over the next few months, this woman seems to rapidly mature and even begins to explore the fundamentals of socialism. But alas, Madame Swiney will lose her best worker when the young woman is called to the deathbed of her beloved father figure. Hopefully, the socialist foundation that this young woman began to lay in the brothel will help Madame Swiney to build a coalition of workers empowered to choose for themselves which men to engage with.
I like this quite a bit.
Thank you.
This is Poor Things.
This is Poor Things.
Yes.
Wait a minute. I've got this now.
Yeah.
I actually noticed that actress watching Orlando too. But I think I just didn't think about her again in the mix of all the different things to retain from that movie.
Yes, which is kind of like Toby Jones.
Right.
But yes, this is Catherine Hunter, who is like so recognizable in Poor Things because she's like completely tatted, like head to toe tatted, and she's like so little, but she has like such a large presence, and she's very minor in this movie, but she just has that face.
Love it.
Oh, wow.
We do love actors with that face.
That's funny because like I've seen Poor Things and still this was like, like a swing enough that I had to be reminded. Well done.
Thank you.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I'll go next. When we and Orlando are introduced to Shelmerdine, he is flung off of a horse and seems to twist his ankle. Orlando takes to him and tends to his wounds, and there's nothing like a love connection to work through the pain. It seems there is more to Shelmerdine than meets the eye. a lot more. In fact, one of the reasons he and time and space defying Orlando hit it off so well is that he too carries with him a special trait that isn't bound by the limits of human lifespan. You see, Shelmerdine is in the bloodline of a man who, as a young boy in the 1500s, was shipwrecked after his father, a sailor, was slain by pirates. This boy was found and saved by a nearby indigenous tribe that, recognizing the fatherless boy needed new direction in his life, performed a ritual act on him to purify his soul and make him a fighter to protect something on this earth worth protecting. This virtuous fighting spirit is something all male offspring in this bloodline carry with them. And Shelmerdine is no different. I believe that when we encounter him circa 1850 or so, he is somewhere between 10 to 15 generations removed from that shipwrecked boy. And I think Shelmerdine's virtue is to protect women's rights. It's something that's a bit new and progressive for that time. Works out great for Orlando, clearly smitten by his mind and his body. Shelmerdine ends up not just being a sperm donor for Orlando, but the father of his own son by a different woman. And this furthers the bloodline right up to about 1940, when that male child, named Kit Walker, has a purpose to protect the jungle, specifically ancient ruins that grave diggers are looking to plunder. He wears a purple cape and, like his great-grandfather, let's say, has an affinity for four-legged friends. His companion of choice is not a horse, but a dog named Devil. Does anybody know this movie?
Is this one movie?
This is one movie.
I do not know this movie.
Not me.
Do you know this
I
movie,
don't
Sarah?
think I do.
This is a movie that I saw at a drive-in movie theater in California with
Fun.
my cousins. This is The Phantom.
The Phantom.
Oh.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, I am not familiar with this.
This is a Billy Zane superhero role. I want to say this is when Hollywood was like, we're pushing all the chips in on Billy Zane. He's going to be a superhero. And I remember liking
This-
it when I was like 9.
Looks ridiculous.
Oh, yeah, that's it, though.
Has a very silly superhero
As
outfit.
a 9-year-old, I did not think it was so silly. I remember
As
liking
a
it a lot.
9-year-old in the 90s, I could see
Yeah.
this really, really. He has a skull on
Yes.
his belt buckle.
Slam evil, guys. But yes, what I love about this, though, is that character, there's like something about time that they transcend. And so I think, considering the fact we only
Totally.
have 12 minutes with
Yeah, exactly.
this character, I am like, this is right there for the taking. I think that Shelmerdine is in the bloodline that eventually becomes the Phantom.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, not of the opera, not of the paradise, just Phantom.
Yeah.
He's a superhero. Yeah.
Slam evil.
Thank you.
Wow.
Yeah.
Look at that.
I mean, this will stump none of you. But this is about the character of Jay. He's clearly someone who lives by a very strict moral code as the leader of the Animal Liberation Front. And in one scene, he sort of alludes to there being maybe an ancestral component to the organization. Maybe his father or grandfather started the ALF, and he is carrying the torch. And it turns out this is true in the form of Jay's great-grandfather. His great-grandpa, he's a preacher named Eli, at the turn of the 20th century California. He holds fiery sermons, he performs healing miracles, but we kind of get the feeling he's maybe a bit morally bankrupt. He becomes kind of obsessed with extracting the oil that he believes is underneath his family's ranch. And luckily for him, his twin brother, Paul, dual role, connects him to a prospector who is looking to drill for that oil. So Eli, he is ready to strike it rich, ostensibly to improve the lives of the people in his dusty, barren town and in his church, but might be more for some personal gain.
Right.
So him and this prospector, they do not get along. They're like oil and water, pun intended. They hate each other.
Holy water.
Yes. They're in constant competition for decades, and the prospector does end up drilling for the oil, but he never ends up paying Eli or anyone in his town for that oil. And Eli cannot let it go. Decades go by, and Eli goes to visit this now immensely wealthy oil baron to ask for his share. And this guy is just so annoyed by Eli that he bludgeons him with a bowling pin. And we presume that Eli has died from this injury. But it turns out that through some miracle, perhaps of God, he survives. It takes him many years to fully recover from this traumatic brain injury, but when he does, he is a new man. And his greed and moral bankruptcy have been replaced by a moral fortitude and a focus on environmental conservation. And he sees the destruction that this oil baron has left in his wake and the way he sort of decimated these communities in the quest for oil. He becomes a conservationist. He advocates for environmental regulation to Congress. He starts community organizing in his church and beyond to resist oil company bids for land. And he passes these convictions and morals on to his son. And this line of conservation and environmental advocacy continues through the generations until we reach somewhat present day when we meet Eli's great-grandson, Jay, who is the leader of the Animal Liberation Front, and to save animals worldwide from the horrors of factory farming and to save the world from the environmental impact of factory farming, which rivals the burning of oil as one of the great contributors to climate change.
And it seems to be a given in Jay's mission of nonviolence with the ALF in executing the aims of the ALF, that there will not be blood.
Huh.
That's true.
Yes.
Excellent.
No blood should be shed.
No, that's very true.
That was awesome.
That was great.
Great
Thank
job.
you.
Well done.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
I was fighting the urge to yell, drainage!
Yeah.
But
I think
that was great.
I think we're all drinking that milkshake.
Yes. We're there. We're there with that.
All right.
Very nice.
Well, speaking of the ALF, so it's clear that the ALF member, who we simply know as K, has issues with both the truth and staying committed to a cause. By the time that Mija successfully buys back her beloved Okja, and K and his ALF accomplice, Jay, have been imprisoned, K has risen above his original betrayal to be reinstated as a member of the activist group. But things go awry yet again in their next act of resistance in such a way that his reinstatement does not last long. As it turns out, K, whose real name is Danny Cho, has had a rather frivolous involvement in this cause to begin with, and his life has been one of many ups, downs, and temporary but passionate pursuits. Following his departure from the Animal Liberation Front, Danny Cho returns home to the greater Los Angeles area, moves back in with his younger brother, and takes up work as a local contractor, but struggles to maintain a steady income. Under pressure professionally and feeling residual guilt from his own actions in the ALF, as well as a chain of events stemming from the exploits of his unpredictable cousin, which have affected their entire family, Danny can't help but start to crack, and his behavior reaches a breaking point when a minor traffic run-in at a local parking lot escalates into a full-blown bout of road rage, and merely the beginning of an ensuing chain of events. So despite the lessons Danny Cho perhaps should have learned from his past efforts in the world of animal rights, he has,
I see where this is going.
he has nonetheless found himself in what you could call maybe a rivalry, a feud, or most ironically, a beef.
Very nice.
Thank you.
I saw it coming a mile away, but that
Yeah.
was great.
I
Very
think-
well done.
Thank you. I think it all started with just realizing the irony of the title and
Yeah.
the mission of his character in Okja, and I think it lined up pretty nicely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
I think so too. I think
Yeah.
it's very well done. Any closing thoughts we have on Tilda Swinton or these films?
Well, I think, Madeline, with the passage you quoted from Orlando, it was a really great ending bookend to this cycle. I really appreciated what you said about,
Same.
how this has been a fascinating cycle for you in the long run. And it's been acknowledged in the past episodes that I was the one who conceived of this cycle and many of the other movies we selected. But I think that, Madeline, you came up with really the perfect way to wrap it all up.
Thank you.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure engaging with these movies. And just as I was, taking one last scan through Tilda Swinton's filmography, got to do a quick shout out for the one other movie that we've covered with her, Problemista,
Mhm.
which is another very colorful role that she plays in that.
It's like if you blended Lucy and Nancy together. Is what you
Yeah.
got.
Yeah, and this is kind of the messy offspring.
Yes.
But yeah, so I think colorful is maybe the number one word I would use to describe her acting style across all these many different films and roles within individual films. But yeah, it's, the next things that Tilda appears in, I'm very eager to see. There are, as we've acknowledged, there are portions of her filmography that I still want to get to, whether it's the Derek Jarman stuff. Joanna Hogg's another director that she's worked with quite a bit, and I've seen none of those films yet.
Eternal Daughter is great.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Good to know. I love everything I've seen. I imagine I'll love what I continue to see. You go, Tilda Swinton.
Yeah, absolutely. I had a great time with revisiting these movies because I had seen all of them before. But again, I think I fell asleep the first time I watched Suspiria. I'm really glad I finally made it all the way through. I love that. I don't do this all that often where I read a book in conjunction with an episode. But whenever I do it, I always feel very satisfied. And again, highly recommend the book Orlando in addition to the movie. Highly recommend the movie Techno Lust if you want weird sci-fi time and want to see Tilda in
Lots
4
Tilda.
roles as a semen demon, then go for that one as well.
Well, yes, and for the act of reading the book to contribute to the conversation, thank you for your service.
Yes,
appreciate that. Yeah. The last thing I just wanted to say about Tilda Swinton that is, she's had this very long career. We mentioned Orlando was something of a breakout role for her, but she had already been a professional actress more or less for a full decade before that. And I think honestly, it probably took about another decade before she was really making a name for herself in more mainstream films. The thing that I find really interesting about her is I feel like she's somebody who seems to have evolved, and this expression came up earlier in our conversation. I think she's kind of figured out how to play the game.
Yeah.
In some ways, she's very media savvy in the interviews that I've seen with her in a way that I don't necessarily feel she would admit she was even ready for in the 80s and the 90s. I love that we've been able to get this career become very visible.
Yeah.
Part of the reason we mentioned earlier, there's a lot of work of hers that is not very popular, maybe hasn't really been seen as not nearly as accessible. But at a time when I think a lot of actresses are unfortunately not really finding good roles, she has been the opposite. She has taken the fuck off.
Yeah.
And I just think it's a very cool thing to see. I think it speaks greatly to her talents. The range that she can bring to a role or several roles in films. And so all in on Tilda, man.
Yeah.
What
no
a,
one
what
does
a
it
force.
like Tilda.
Yeah. Want to say a huge thank you, Sarah, for doing this. You have a 9-to-5 job. I cannot believe we're still here doing this. So I greatly appreciate your patience through this whole thing, for hanging. Like I said at the top of this, you're one of my very best friends. It's surreal to see you at this table in some respects, but I'm so glad that you were able to do it. And thank you so much. This is just great.
Oh, thank you. It's been an honor, and I will stay up late to talk about movies. So this was perfect.
Very cool.
Well, thanks for living that experience with us.
Thank you for having me. I think the concept of doppelgangers and dual roles is maybe my favorite film trope. So it was a pleasure to talk about it for 3 hours.
Yeah. So the next time we get on mics, it will actually be for a pretty special reason, because we will be recording our 100th episode.
Ooh.
This is a big deal for us. These are things that the three of us and our guests truly prepare quite a bit for. So reaching 100 episodes, not a small feat.
For sure.
We will be taking a moment to celebrate that next time we get on mics. And after that, we're going to start a new cycle that is going by the name Comfort 90s. That includes many different definitions of comfort. These will mostly, but not exclusively, be pretty familiar titles that have strong rewatchability factor to them. They might speak to a certain sensibility. They might have some cult classic appeal, or some combination of those three descriptors. These will all be movies that have some place in our collective consciousness when we think about the 90s. And I'm looking forward to this because they're going to incorporate several different genres. It's going to be a great mix of movies.
And to kick that off, well, I guess to me, it feels fittingly auspicious that this is going to directly follow our 100th episode, because the movie that we've all seen that we're going to talk about first I think it's a movie that is near and dear to all of our hearts, but I've made a very, very big point of it throughout this podcast and throughout much of, like I'm approaching 30, much of the second half of the life I've lived so far in general. And, so this is by a pair of directors we have covered a few times before. And this is one of their movies that maybe didn't quite take off at the time, but is now considered, maybe it's certainly one of their best regarded, maybe by some of the film they are best known for. And, I said something earlier about it being down there somewhere. Let me take another look. We might have to go hunting for a rug. We've got to put on some bathrobes, write some checks for a carton of milk. Maybe we'll sink a few.
Market zero.
Market zero. Maybe we're going to down a few White Russians in the process. It's time to talk The Big Lebowski. Yes, directed by Joel and Ethan Coen, starring Jeff Bridges, John Goodman, Steve Buscemi, Julianne Moore, John Turturro. For my money, it's like, it is one of the definitive films of my lifetime, and also very appropriately to the theme, maybe my number one comfort movie.
Yeah. It's just like an endlessly quotable script. Yeah. I'm going to have to muzzle myself in many moments when we talk.
I'm going to have to fight the urge to rewrite the entire script in my notes.
There we go.
You could probably do that without rewatching the movie, I would guess.
Good amount, yeah.
It's been a while since I've rewatched this. I think I haven't seen this movie in like a decade.
Sarah, what is The Big Lebowski to you? Do you have a relationship with it?
I would say, so I have not seen this movie in probably like 15 years.
Yeah.
It definitely needs a rewatch. I do remember enjoying it. I will also say I have been to the Big Lebowski themed bar in Reykjavik, Iceland. There are rugs on the wall, there is a bowling alley, and a lot of variations of White Russians. So that's my most recent experience with the Big Lebowski. So I do need to rewatch the movie.
That is a unique one, I think, from all of us here.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I've not been to a Big Lebowski themed bar in Reykjavik. Yeah. Well, in addition to this podcast, you can follow us on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram at Sleepless Cinematic Pod. You can subscribe to our monthly newsletter at sleeplesscinematicpod.substack.com. You can contact us via email. We would love to hear from you. Please write to us at sleeplesscinematicpod@gmail.com. I'm not on Letterboxd. Y'all on Letterboxd, though, right?
Are
you on Letterboxd? I'm on Letterboxd.
Yeah. What's your handle?
I think it's Sarah Delapew. Sarah Delapu.
I have to imagine you're going to be a great follow. So I'm gonna tell everybody here you should do it.
Wow, thank you.
Yeah. Well, you can also follow me on Letterboxd. It's just a version of my name, Julian_Barthold. I don't have an underscore in my real name, in case you're wondering.
And my official name on Letterboxd and on my birth certificate is Patroness of Cats. If you are listening to us for the first time, thank you for finding us. If this is the second or third or 30th or 99th time you've listened to us, thank you for sticking with us. We have really grown to love doing this, and it means the world to have our budding listenership grow.
And if you haven't already, we ask you, return listener, to write a positive review and rate us on your podcast platform of choice. This is one of the best ways for new listeners to find us and help our podcast take its next steps. You can also keep it grassroots and tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a few more friends about the Sleepless Cinematic Podcast. That helps too. Well, that tasted pretty fucking good.
Yes, it did.